Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the MHA What If with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Deku Brought Her to 1A? All credits for this video go to their respective authors, so please support the real author. Check out the link in the description for more details. Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. In the beginning, Class 1A was now starting their second year at UA and were Class 2A. Coming back from their spring break, the students noticed that there was a new member in their class. They couldn't really see who this new person was since they had a heavy hoodie on with the hood pulled up, obscuring their face from the class. As you're all wonder, none of you are being moved to one of the other classes. Their homeroom teacher Aizawa started off, making the class let out a sigh of relief. While I know there's at least one of you that should be. Principal Nizu thought it would be best for Nico to join us, so she'll be moving into the dorms later today. Mr. Aizawa, what about her uniform? Ida jumped to his feet. Clearly her clothes are not the regulation uniform required. Aizawa went to answer, but the new student had her answer ready to go. With a phone that she had kept on quick draw for such reasons, I have an exemption for a few months with I get to know everyone. Due to my quirk, I have been subject to relentless torment, so I am allowed to dress as I am for a little while. A feminine voice came from the phone. It was clear that this wasn't the first time she had been asked. What's with the auto answers? Bakugo sneered, don't you got a mouth? That was rude, Kaken. Izuku turned and scolded him, couldn't you try to be a little nicer? Bakugo only scoffed and went to find his seat and dropped down. Nico watched him go from under her hood. She hit the button with his answer. Again, because of my quirk, my real voice is a little strange, so I will be using my phone until I feel comfortable with talking. She held his gaze for a little longer before she was swarmed by the girls in the class, grateful to finally have another female student among their ranks. You guys can play 20 questions on your own time. Right now it's time to head to the gym for some training. Aizawa broke up the giggling girls. Drop your bags and go get changed. And Bakugo, you've been assigned to show the new girl around today, so the two of you are excused from classes for today. Are you sure about that? The voice from Nico's phone asked. It seems to me that he's in, but a few of the others laughed into their hands at the insult. No one else has the time, and Nizu said it had to be him. Aizawa said as the others dropped off their bags, leaving the seat right behind Bakugo open. Drop your bag and get going. The school is big and you only have today to get the layout. This is bullshit. Why does it have to be me? Bakugo slammed his hands in the desk as he got up. Why can't one of the clucking hens take her around? I've got better things to do. I'd much prefer that over you. Nico continued her assault. You're just a Pompey's over-inflated hot air bag who too full of himself. Even though no one could see her face, they could tell she was glaring daggers at him. All this coming from a walking pile of clothes. I bet I could take you any day of the week. Bakugo boasted as he stood over her. It was only a 4-inch difference between them, but he tried to use it to his advantage. I can kick your sorry butt into next year, Nico challenged. Can we have a space tonight after dinner? All eyes turned to Aizawa, who looked at them with a cold stare. If it will get you out of my classroom. But it will only be the two of them, and anyone I catch trying to sneak out will get 3 weeks of detention. Fine. Let's go, freak, I've got better places to be. Bakugo pushed through the crowd that had gathered. Midoriya? Nico tapped Izuku in the shoulder. Is he always such a dickweed about everything? She noticed that he was a little amazed with her. Kaken can be a little rough around the edges, but he'll warm up to you eventually. If you want, I can show you around later. I know Kaken will cut things short. Izuku gave her a smile. And you can call me by my name if you want. Do you mind if I shorten it? How's Aiza sound? She offered, and he nodded. I'd like that, Izuku said as Bakugo came back and dragged her off. I guess we'll see you later. All right, freak, last stop. Bakugo said as he stopped outside the dorm. Wander around for all I care. You got me out of classes, so I should thank you. Hey, a-hole, care to tell me what your problem with me is? Nico demanded, using her phone. You don't even know me, and yet you already know that you don't like me. She got in his face, catching him off guard. He was flustered for half a heartbeat before giving her back the attitude. Because I don't trust freaks who hide their faces. He reached for her hood, but she slapped his hand before he could touch the fabric. You will not dare touch me, or you won't have a hand to scratch your butt with, she warned him. As for our fight, I'll get Aizawa to bring you to me. She turned her back on him to go unpack her room. Don't you worry, but you'll be sorry you picked a fight with me, he shouted as she flipped him off before the door closed behind her. Med freak, why the hell am I worked up over nothing? He stood outside just watching the door. Fit, I'm going to take a nap. I'm so done with people for now. He went in and saw the luggage cart loaded with a bunch of small boxes, but no sign of the hooded freak. Snooping through a lady's belongings now, how classy, he spun to see Nico bringing down an empty cart. Either offer to help me or move the hell out of my way. He scoffed, letting her pass. You yell at me about having a bad attitude, but you're being a total beach. Treat others as you want to be treated, she quoted. You started being nasty to me first, while Aizu on the other hand offered to make up for the lack of tour he seemed to know would happen. She watched him flinch at the mention of Izuku. In that Deku, shouldn't be talking about me like that, he muttered as she parked the empty cart out of the way. What the hell does he know, sticking his nose in where it doesn't belong? Should have known you'd be mean to him too. Nico let out a real laugh, catching Bakugo off guard. It was only for a short time, but he wanted to know what her voice actually sounded like. How is it someone hasn't killed you yet? Bakugo ignored her comment and went to get on the elevator with her, and they both reached for the 4th floor button. You have got to be kidding me, we're on the same floor. Nico snapped as they went up to their floor. I better not find you trying to sneak in to snoop. Please, like I'd want to snoop through your sea. He flipped open a random box on the top, instantly regretting doing it. So you're pantai thief too, good to know. She slapped his hand away before closing the box as they got off. I'll have to make sure to trap my room to keep you out. They watched each other through the windows as they went to their room. I ain't a pantai thief. Bakugo shouted as Nico flipped him off again. And even if I was, I wouldn't be interested in yours. They slammed their doors at each other and neither came out until they heard the rest of their classmates return after classes. Midnight had skirted. The pair to one of the school's practices gyms. I want a clean match. I will punish anyone who resorts to dirty tricks. This will be the 1st to 5 points match. Landing blows will earn you a single point. She warned both of them as she assumed they were glaring at each other. No one could see Nico's expression from under the hood. Have you both made you preparations? They nodded. Good then, you may begin. She went to lean on the wall to watch the students fight out their differences. They circled each other like a couple of alley cats fighting over territory. All right, freak, ready to eat your words? Once I beat you, you better start showing me a little more respect. Bakugo snapped as he leaped forward to tackle her. And when I show you who's queen of the hill, you're going to be my partner. Nico typed out on the light keyboard on her sleeve as she dodged him easily. You're going to learn your place? They kept up their dance of blows as Bakugo tried to land a single hit. You gotta be scared, you keep backing up. Just let me hit you and we can finish this. Not on you, life, pantai thief. Nico taunted him as she continued to dodge his attacks. But I should stop running, now that I know all I need to know. She pulled a few paper stars from the large pocket. You're going to fight me with paper? Bakugo laughed. Are you even trying to win? He mocked as she threw them past his cheeks, leaving a pair of thin twin cuts in their wake. 2 points, Nico. Midnight called out as a scoreboard came to life next to her. Glaring at his hooded opponent, I won't let you get the better of me again. He directed a small explosion at her feet to trip her up, but it didn't work in his favor. It only served to get Nico airborne and coming at him with a flying kick which he managed to barely sidestep. Nico held up 2 fingers. 2 points, Bakugo, match tied. Are you stupid or something? I didn't see any hits land, so why the hell would you say something? Bakugo demanded as Nico showed him her leg. The fabric was torn and there were 2 small burns. Nico pulled a couple sheets of paper and quickly folded them into a dagger-looking weapon. She brought it up to her face and blew something on it. You're taking too long. Bakugo charged at her again. A quick step to the right, she slashed at his arm with the paper knife and her score went up again. In a fit of frustration, Bakugo slammed his fist into the wall and sent a large chunk at Nico, which she knew she couldn't avoid without revealing some of her quirk, so she dropped to the floor and vanished from sight, leaving her baggy clothes behind. Where the hell did you go, freak? We're not finished here. Bakugo shouted as his score only went up by 1, so he knew he had got her with his last attack. When the dust settled a little, He noticed that her clothes were pinned under the chunk from the wall and a wine-red cat was sitting on top of it clean its face. Bakugo looked to Midnight. Oi Striper, I should have won. That attack should have creamed the freak. Your opponent can still fight, I would pay a little more attention. Midnight said as the red cat jumped up to his shoulder and started purring loudly while rubbing its head on his cheek. Bakugo wasn't sure what was going to until a pair of thin legs trapped his head in place. Nothing he did could shake whoever it was off and he could feel his energy start to drain out of him. Med freak, get off of me and fight like a man. When the legs withdrew, he felt 2 dabs on the back of his neck. He managed to stay on his feet just long enough to see the score change for Nico, bringing her to the winning score of 5. Winner Nico Yami. Midnight called as Bakugo hit the floor. Just before passing out he saw Midnight walk over to a girl with wine-red hair and cat ears tail. Is he going to all right? Nico nodded, freeing her clothes. I just used a couple of pressure points, he'll be up in the morning, she sighed looking at her ruined clothing. Can you do me a favor? I don't the others to see me like this, can you carry my gear for me while I go in as a cat? She flattened her cat-like ears against her head. You should be proud of the way you look, your classmates would accept you on the spot. Midnight said as she took Nico's clothes before she changed back into a cat. 2. Nico, are you still up? The first few weeks of school went by in a flash. Nico still hadn't gathered the courage to show her new friends her real face, but she was forced to talk without the aid of the phone since her tech had been destroyed in her fight with Bakugo. The pair had started a routine that everyone on their floor could set their watches by. 6 o'clock sharp alarms would go off and 15 minutes later they could hear their greetings of name calling which often consist of Freak and Pantai Thief as they went down to get some breakfast. On the way down Nico would stop off on the second floor and wake Izuku so they could eat together. Some days a few of the others would join them but most of the time it was just the 3 of them. On the days they had classes, they would finish up quickly and head back up to get ready for the day by 7 with another round of insults and name-calling. But as today was a Saturday and they didn't have classes, breakfast was slower and more relaxed. So what's the plans for today? Izuku asked as they sat around the table. I think there was a new cafe opening up, if you wanted to go check it out. Kirishima dropped down in the seat next to Izuku. Yeah, I think that was a cat-themed cafe, you know the ones where you get to play with the little furballs? Nico shook her head at the thought. I'll pass thanks. She saw the hurt in Izuku's eyes when she passed. I think I'll hit up the mall, I need to get some parts to fix up my gear that someone ruined on me. She shot of glare to Bakugo. I had to order in parts and they finally came in. Maybe next time. Kirishima waited for her to take a sip of her coffee. So the little kitty doesn't want to go make friends. His comment made her spray Bakugo with coffee. I'm sorry, what did you say? She demanded, wiping herself off. Did you just call me a cat? Oi freak, what the F was that for? Bakugo growled, you better be doing laundry later so you can clean this. He pulled his shirt off and threw it at her. Ah, come on Bakugo. Her reaction was priceless and I can just imagine the shocked look on her face. Kirishima laughed. The cat's out of the bag. I know why you're always hiding under those giant hoods you like. Listen here, red idiot. I don't know what you think you know, but you better keep your mouth shut. Nico warned as she threw Bakugo's shirt at him. And since you made me spray him with my coffee, you get to wash the shirt. She got up and took her dishes to the kitchen. Whose turn is it for dinner? She called back. There were only a few that could really cook and most nights on the weekends she would come back with takeout. That would be me. Bakugo answered, and I better not catch you sneaking food in. I'll kick your butt if I think you're trying to skip out on eating tonight. Whatever Pantai Thief, like you could take me. She waved him off as she went to go get dressed. I remember kicking you and I have a teacher to back me up. Aizu, you want to come with me to the mall or are you still going to the cafe? I want to see what Achiko's up to, I'll let you know before you head off, he answered as Nico headed for the stairs. She paused to listen out of sight, to see what Kirishima would say. What was that all about between the two of you? Izuku asked, it's not like her to call you names, so why did you pick a fight with her like that, Kirishima? Mostly because I wanted to see Bakugo get soaked, he laughed. But I'm pretty sure that she's hiding cat ears under that hood. From what I overheard from the girls is she wait until everyone else is finished in the bath before going in, and if one of them goes into her room she's still got it on. Sheet, I knew I should have been more careful. Nico leaned her head back against the wall. I'm going to have to step up my game and make sure that no one finds out. What if she's all ugly under there? Did you ever think of that? Bakugo chimed in, you're thinking she all cute and cat-like, but I think she's hideous and that why she won't show us? Kaken, that's rude. You're the only one that could have gotten a look so far. Izuku jumped in, so what can you tell us? Bakugo blushed a little at the memory of the legs that wrapped around his head. I blacked out before I could see anything. He went and dumped his dishes in the sink. Don't you morons have better things to do with your time than grilling me? Nico didn't have much time to move before Bakugo came around the corner and found her listening in. Now look who's snooping, he smirked down at her, still a little pink. Screw up, I'm not the one blushing like a schoolgirl with a crush. Nico shot back at him. But I do have a question, why didn't you tell them what you saw? And what was it I saw exactly? I blacked out, remember, he continued past her up the stairs. You do have great legs by the way, he said, knowing that she was turning a bright red under her hood. Pantai rating a-hole? She shouted up after him, choosing to take a different way up to her room. It didn't help any as he was standing at the window across from his door waiting to taunt her some more. Before going to change she just flipped him off, and he gestured to his room, flustering her some more. Why the hell are you following me? Nico snapped at Bakugo as he walked with he through the mall with her. I don't need an issy. Please, like I'd want to be caught dead walking around with you. The game store is in the same direction, he scoffed. You're getting pretty full of yourself, thinking I'm here to keep you company. Nico turned to face him. Liar, the game store is by the food court. You're following me, she jabbed a finger into his chest. I think you're waiting for an opening to see if Kirishima was right. That's the only explanation. If I really want to, I could have easily do it in the mornings when we're heading down for food. He took a step closer. In the time it takes you to get to Deku's room there is plenty of time for me to attack. So you want to try that again? You looking to get your butt handed to you again? She held her ground. I can do that for you again, anytime you want. Nico didn't want to show weakness in front of him, but since he made the comment on her legs, she couldn't help but blush a little. I think you'd like to do something different, he grinned at her, sensing her growing discomfort. You didn't have a problem wrapping your legs around me during our fight? I'm done with you, go do whatever the hell you want. Nico huffed as she turned away, heading to the electronics store to get her order. You could drown for all I care, I hate you so very much, she muttered as she heard him laugh from behind her. Nico didn't stop or even risk a look over her shoulder to see if he was still following her as she went into the store. Oh Nico, perfect timing, I was just about to take my lunch, want to join me? The younger man behind the counter asked as she came up to him. Can I give you a rain check, Mark? I need to get back and fix up my gear. She could see he was a little disappointed. How much do I owe you? And did everything come in? She reached for her wallet but Mark just handed her the box. It's all here and someone paid for it already, he said when she went to ask. Yeah, he came in like an hour ago and settled the bill, muttered something about that it was his fault your gear was smashed. Mark just shrugged. I don't really care who's paying as long as one steals from me. Thanks again for calling all this in for me. I'll come back if there's anything else I need to fix. Nico said as she tried waving and balancing her box. Say hi to your dad for me too. She did her best to walk through the crowds of shoppers without knocking into anyone. Hey freak, need a hand with that, it looks heavy. She heard Bakugo's favorite name for her come from somewhere close by. A girl like you shouldn't be forced to carry something so heavy. Nico turned to see him coming out of the game shop that was close by. Why did you pay for this? I didn't need you to do that. She kept walking, taking a few side steps, making sure to avoid walking into a pack of little kids. Bakugo didn't give her another chance to argue. Give it here, clearly you need help. He took the box from her and shoved his bag into her hands. How did you even pick this up? What the hell do you even buy? I need to basically build my gear from nothing. It's going to take a lot of work to get it working again. Nico got curious and peeked into the bag she was carrying. You actually play these kinds of games? She noticed the title was one of her favorites. When we get back I guess I'll have to send you a game request and show you how a real gamer plays. Bakugo barked out a laugh. Please, I'd kick your digital but so hard you'll actually feel it. He noticed the time as they passed the food court. If you want to thank me for paying for all this, you can get us some lunch. He found a free table to put the box down on and took his bag back. Get something extra spicy for me. That Thai place has the best noodles in the area. He pointed to a small place that didn't have much of a line. Alright, just don't go messing with my stuff. She left him to get the food. Bakugo watched Nico's every step, the way that her hips swayed and the bounce of her butt. He could make it out even under all the baggy clothes she had on. What the hell is wrong with me? I owe her for kicking my butt, so why is I going out of my way to be nice? He scolded himself, clearly confused with what he had been doing. What the hell didn't I tell Kiri about what I saw before passing out? That would have put her in her place. He had been wrapped up in his thought that he didn't notice the food in front of him until Nico slid into the seat across from him. You must really eat there a lot. The owner threw in a mango drink for you. Her voice pulled him back to reality. What the hell is with all the chocolate milk? He asked when he saw the 3 large cartons in front of her. You got a problem or something? She waved off his questions. Let's go with or something. Now eat up. I have to get started on my repairs. Nico quickly inhaled her dinner and practically ran back to her room to keep working. She didn't want to have such a long break, but she also didn't want anyone coming in to bug her about eating. Bakugo had finished up in the kitchen, prepping some stuff for breakfast the next morning a little after 11 before heading up to bed. He paused by the window that he would sling insults at Nico from and noticed that her night was still on. Before he could start heading over to check on her, he watched Izuku go up and knock on the door with a small wrapped plate in his hand. Why should I care if that dumbass is going to see her? It's not like we're going out or anything. Bakugo turned his back to the window and turned in for the night. Izuku lightly knocked twice, and when he didn't get an answer he got a little worried that something was wrong and tried the knob, finding it was unlocked. Nico, are you still up? He asked, peeking in. She was sitting at a small table in a pair of small shorts and a spaghetti-strap tank top. It was the first time he had seen any girl wearing so little. Once he got over the shock of how much exposed skin he was seeing, Izuku took in the thin cattail that was lazily swishing along the floor and the pair of wine-red cat ears that sat on the top of her head. He noticed that she was working on something while listening to something with a pair of white headphones. I guess that's why she didn't hear me. He took a step closer and her tail stopped its movement and one of the cat ears turned his way. Nico? Izuku said as she spun on him with 3 paper stars ready for a fight. Sorry for barging in like this, but I thought you might want something to eat since you didn't really eat much dinner. He held out the plate in front of him in hopes she wouldn't attack. She carefully took the headphones out. If I didn't answer, it wasn't an invitation to come in. Nico growled, closing the distance between them. So you found out what I look like. Congratulations. Who dared you to do it? Izuku shook his head. No one. I just wanted to make sure that you weren't hungry. Were the last 2 up and I was concerned? She looked down at the plate, and there were 5 homemade rice balls. Well, thank you. Nico snatched the plate from him. But you need to leave. I have to get back to work. She shoved him back towards the door. You better not tell anyone about me, or so help me I'll kill you. I promise no one will find out from me, he swore as he backed out into the hall. Good night then. He could help feel like he betrayed her somehow. Night Aizu, she whispered, closing and locking the door before going back to work. I should have been more careful. Now I'm going to hide out until Monday to make sure no one knows. She felt bad that she had treated Izuku so roughly, but he should have known better to sneak into a girl's room like that. Bakugo rolled over the slam him hand on the alarm clock that was screaming at him. He hadn't slept much after watching Izuku standing outside Nico's door. Why can't I think of anything else? It shouldn't bother me. He rolled out of bed and made his way down to the kitchen. As he walked, Bakugo noticed that he didn't have Nico calling him names. She's probably sleeping in because she was working all night. It wasn't until he got to the main floor and found a note on the table saying that Nico was going to be working all day and if someone could bring her a couple of meals during the day it would be greatly appreciated. Morning, Kaken. Izuku greeted him on his way to the fridge. Nico didn't come down with you today? What's it matter to you? I'm not her keeper, he snapped, shoving the note into Izuku's hands. I'm going for a run. He didn't bother going to change, and stormed out, leaving a very confused Izuku standing in the kitchen with a crumpled note in his hand. Just as he opened the front door, Bakugo was almost tripped over a dark red blur running between his legs and disappearing inside. Spinning around, he just made out the blur dashing up the stairs. What the F was that? Whatever it was on a mission. He debated chasing after it, but decided that it wasn't his problem and went to clear his head. As the day went on, The only time Nico was seen outside her room was only when she really needed to, and even then it was only a few minutes at a time. Bakugo noticed that all of the girls came by at one point or another to check on her or trying to coax her out with offers spending time on the town, but each time they were turned away with a promise that next weekend they could do a girls' day out. By the time dinner rolled around, even some of the guys were getting worried. Denki, Kirishima, and Siro had even tried to get her to go with them to the arcade, but nothing worked. So when the replacement meal for the very torch dinner was delivered, Bakugo was done with watching everyone trying to get her out to join them. "Kaken, can I ask you something?" Izuku's voice pulled him from his thoughts as he stood by the window. "Did you actually not see anything when you had your fight with Nico? Like I keep saying moron, I blacked out. So no, I don't know anything." Bakugo lied. He felt it wasn't his place to say anything while the others all took turns guessing what she actually looked like. "Oh, okay then." Izuku looked across to Nico's room. What if Kirishima was right with his guess yesterday, and that's why she's been avoiding everyone today? He looked guilty about something and it grated on Bakugo's last nerve. Turning to face Izuku, he fought against spending the runt through the wall. "Why did you do last night? I saw you at her door and now she's acting weird." Bakugo snarled, "You were the last one to see her, so what did you do?" "Nothing, I just went to make sure that she had a little something to eat before I turned in and now she's avoiding everyone." Izuku snapped back. "If anything, it would be your fault that she's like this. You're always going out of your way to pick fights with her." "Teach, you dumbass, I only pick fights with her because she started it on the first day." He stepped around Izuku and head around to Nico's door. "I've had enough of this bullshit. Someone needs to pull her head out of her butt." Nico was stretched out on the bed. She had finished her work just a little after lunch and had spent the afternoon dealing with the waves of people coming to get her to leave and taking little cat naps. She had expected to hear Bakugo pounding on the door, demanding her to come out and fight him, but he didn't so much as come in one of the clusters. Why the hell does it bother me so much that he didn't come to yell through the door at me? Her tail twitched restlessly as she looked at the table, the pair of comms she had been working on waiting to be given to their owners. On top of the repairs to her own, she had made 2 new ones for Izuku and Bakugo, the only 2 she really got along with, and thought it would be useful to be able to get in touch with them whenever she wanted. But with what happened the night before with Izuku, she was starting to doubt if she would ever find a place where she felt comfortable. "You better be dressed in there. I'm pulling your sulking butt out of there." She shot up as Bakugo slammed into the door as it swung in. "Clearly you're feeling sorry for yourself for no reason. Let's go, you missed dinner." He picked her up and slung her over his shoulder like she weighed nothing. "Put me down, you a-hole," she shouted, pounding her fists into his back. "If I had wanted to eat, I would have taken it when Denki brought it up for me." She tried to fight against his grip, but she couldn't seem to break it. "Just shut your trap, will you?" Screaming in my ear like that ain't going to help. He walked past Izuku and started to head downstairs. "So what if you have a tail and cat ears? It's not like you have 10 eyes or something gross like that. Kaken, this is a little much, don't you think?" Nico looked up to see Izuku following close behind them. "Just let her go." She made one last effort to break free, without having to resort to changing into a cat. "I'm going to kick your butt so hard, Bakugo, you won't ever forget pissing me off," she said as she shifted and kicked off his arm and landed on Izuku. She only stayed on his shoulder for a moment while Bakugo turned to grab at her. "Come on, you're acting like a brat. No one is going to hate you. In fact, I'm sure they'll actually like knowing the real you," he said as she jumped down and bolted down the stairs. Nobody opened the door and grabbed that cat," he shouted, chasing after her. Most of the class was gathered in the common area going over what little homework they hadn't finished as the dark red cat sped past, followed by a fuming Bakugo. "Get back here, you furball. You can't run forever." Momo and Achiko came into the dorm laughing about something as the pair charged at them. Close the DM doors, they looked over to see Nico make a sharper turn than Bakugo could make and caught him before they all ended up on the floor. Bakugo, why are you chasing around that poor cat?" Achiko asked as Izuku helped her up. "Did it steal you dinner or something?" "That ain't no ordinary cat. That's Nico pitching a fit because she didn't want to leave her room," he explained, taking off after her again. "Now will you get back here already?" "I'm sorry, but did he just say that was Nico?" Momo asked as they watch a few of the others join Bakugo in his cat wrangling attempt. "So she's got a shape-shifting quirk? I didn't expect that." So she's some feline characteristics when she in a human form, and that's why she's been hiding from us. Izuku nodded. Yeah, I found out about that part last night when I snuck up on her. I didn't expect that, to be honest, but she doesn't seem pleased with Kaken right now. There was a loud hiss and a long string of cursing from Bakugo. What the hell was that for? You're the idiot that won't listen, he barked as Nico used him as a springboard and jumped onto Kirishima's shoulder. Why don't you want to just change back so everyone can meet you properly? Nico waited for him to try to get closer before jumping off of Kirishima, turned and shifted so she could knock him into Bakugo before changing back and running off again. You shouldn't be so rough with her, Bakugo. Clearly this is a sore spot for her. Kirishima managed to keep his footing and he caught his friend by the shoulders. You've never seen a stray cat in a new home, they don't like to be cornered or manhandled. She'll come out on her own, you just need to have a little patience. Or you could always try catnip. A quiet, shy voice got their attention. It'll depend on how much of the cat takes over, you could try a catnip toy to draw her out. Koji explained as he pulled out a little stuffed-looking mouse from a pocket. You couldn't have offered this sooner. Bakugo snapped as he snatched the cat toy. So what, we just toss it somewhere and wait for her to come out if she even likes it? He looked it over as Koji nodded. Maybe you should leave her alone, clearly Nico's upset with us over this. Izuku said as they heard the sound of light paws padding back to the sitting area. Or I could be wrong. Ah, so you want the little mouse? Bakugo taunted Nico by swinging the toy by its tail, seeing her eyes and tail follow its movement. Well, it's going to cost you. Introduce yourself properly and it's all yours. He grinned when she growled at him before shifting back. I so effing hate you, she growled. I'm Nico Gata, and as you can clearly see I've got a beast form quirk. Nico said with her ears flat against her head in embarrassment. But that's not my only one. I call my other quirk Optimize, but I can show that one off later. She snatched the toy mouse from Bakugo and stormed off. Nico ignored the calls for her to come back and vanished into one of the unused rooms on the second floor. I can't believe he outed me like that. Well, I guess the cat's out of the bag. She laughed at herself for using the one phrase that always got her fur in a bunch. She looked down mouse in her hand and glared at it. I hate Bakugo so much right now, but I guess he just enjoys tormenting me for some reason. She could hear everyone downstairs coming to look for her, so she slipped into the closet in case someone came looking into the room. She didn't want anyone to find her just yet, putting off the endless questions and the laser pointers until another time. Her timing couldn't have been better. Just as she sat down, someone opened the door. She's not in here, she heard Izuku call out to the others. Maybe she went out the back. We shouldn't bother her right now anyways. Nico seemed pretty upset with almost everyone. Aizu, you alone? Nico stuck her head out of the closet. Yeah, but if you want I can call the others back, he offered, coming to find where she had called him from. No, I just want you to sit with me for a little while before they all start asking stupid questions and irritating me with laser pointers. She opened the closet door, but didn't come out. It happens every time someone finds out about my cat form, and it gets to the point that I can't stand to be around anyone. I can't speak for Kaken, but I'm sure the rest of the gang won't do stuff like that. He tried to make her feel better. I mean, at first maybe, but after a while they'd let it slide. Is Bakugo always this cruel, or am I special? Nico found herself rolling the little mouse around in her hand. He didn't have to chase me around like that. I was content hiding in my room. Izuku bit back a laugh as he watched her. I think he was worried about you. It wasn't like you not to spend time with everyone. If I had to guess, he missed you this morning. He was out of it all day. Actually, he almost tripped over me when he was leaving for his run this morning. She tossed the mouse to Izuku. I'm starving now. Think there's something left over from dinner? Yeah, we made sure that there was some left over for you. He held out his hand for her. Come on, I'll run crowd control while you eat. While the rest of their friends tried peppering Nico with questions, Izuku and Bakugo had appointed themselves her unofficial bodyguards and kept everyone at a reasonable distance until she was ready to field their unending questions. And as she expected, someone had found a laser pointer and tried to get her to chase after the red dot. She watched as the light danced across the floor and table and did her best to ignore it, but eventually she broke down and tried grabbing for it. Clearly no, she wouldn't be able, but she gave into to her nature and chased after it. All right, part of you hero training this year is learning how to work with a partner. Aizawa got the class's attention. With our now uneven numbers, we're going to have one team of 3. Gata, you are with Bakugo and Midoriya. He went down the list pairing everyone else off. So looks like they stuck to our deal, but why'd we get stuck with Deku? Bakugo turned around to see Nico. She was still wearing her hoodie, but while they were in class she had the hood down. She gave him a half smile. So what, you want to have me all to yourself, pantai thief? She leaned forward. Should I be touched that you don't want to share? Whatever, so we doing the training on Saturday? He asked, trying not to let her question make him uneasy. If you give me a second I can find out. She scribbled a quick note onto one her stars and threw it to Izuku when she knew Aizawa wasn't looking. As always, it landed right where she wanted without a sound. They watched as he read and shook his head. Looks like you get your wish. She noticed a light tint of pink crossed cheeks. We can go and we can catch him up on Sunday? Nico offered, that is if you don't have plans. Bakugo waved her off. We should all go together. I'll go us up for next week. He went and told Aizawa their plan while she filled Izuku in on their plan. Normally we would set up training camps to test your skill levels together, but after all that has been happening the last year it's not really needed. For the most part we matched up those whose quirks complement each other, or the partners are those who have proven that they can work well together. Aizawa continued explaining how they were matched up. For the next few months the teachers are going to be springing surprise attacks on you and testing to see how well you and your partner handle the situation. At the end of the allotted time, the team with the highest score gets the first pick of class trip destinations. We gotta get this. Nico hissed at Bakugo. I've only got one place I want to go and I want to make sure we get there. The daily scores will be updated and posted in the common areas of the dorms. Aizawa shouted over the bell. One last thing. The team with the lowest score will have to stay behind and get remedial lessons while everyone else is on the trip. Thankfully it was the end of the day, because Nico grabbed her teammates and dragged them behind her. I will not be doing extra lessons because of you two. I will be getting top spot and getting to pick where we're going, she demanded of them. This is really important to you, isn't it? Izuku noticed that she had forgotten about her hood in her excitement. I already promised my mom that I'd go see her this weekend. But if you two wanted to get a head start on the team training without me, it might actually help. Of course it's important. We'd get to pick where the class goes on our trip. We'd have to make it a good choice. Nico remembered something and started digging through her bag. I forgot in all the excitement the other night. I made these for you too. She held out the pair of devices and what looked like a bracelet to each of them. It's the exact same as mine. The cuff reads your vitals and monitors them and will send the other two if something spikes. She pulled up her sleeve and showed them. So what's the screen for then? Izuku took his set and looked it over. He noticed a small red stone in the middle of the cuff and Bakugo had a clear one. That's the cool part. Once you put the cuff on, make a fist and turn your arm over. She smiled as Izuku did as she said, come on, I'm not going to be telling you this again. Nico waited for Bakugo before explaining anymore. Alright, I already programmed all my info in there for you so you'll be able to find me at any time. There's 2 ways you can scroll, from the screen itself or the keyboard on your arm. This seems something like May would make. These are amazing. You came up with this on your own? Izuku asked as Nico blushed a little. I worked on the prototype with her. I needed some work done on my costume and we got talking. Her ears flattened out. She was the first person here I really opened up to, and it would spend my lunches in the support class with her as we worked. With skills like this, why not go that route? Any hero would love tech like this. Nico's expression changed, but she didn't say anything. So this is why your order was so big when you went to pick it up. Bakugo changed the subject when he noticed that she went quiet. Yeah, I wanted to find a way to thank the both of you so being nice to me. She looked at the guys in front of her. You both have been making me feel more comfortable in your own ways. Yeah, well don't get used to it. Once this team thing is over I want a rematch, and this time don't you think about stripping to distract me. He laughed as Nico punched him. I had to shift and most of my clothes don't change with me. You shouldn't have thrown that chunk of wall at me. She shoved Bakugo as they started walking again. I wouldn't have walked away from that if I hadn't. I'm sorry, what happened? Izuku asked as he caught up. Kaken, you tried killing her on the first day. Are you insane? Nico started telling Izuku about their fight, with Bakugo cutting in every time he felt she had missed or was telling something wrong. Izuku had left right after classes were done on Friday, leaving Nico and Bakugo to figure out a little bit of their team strategies. Their early morning routines worked in their favor because they could talk things over freely without having to worry about being overheard. So they had agreed to work on combo attacks for the two of them while they could and hoped that they didn't get attacked while they were short a teammate. Nico grabbed a giant carton of chocolate milk that she had written her name on so no one would dream of stealing it out from under her and headed to see their class's leaderboard where they sat in the middle of. We need some more points. She found they had dropped 2 places. We need something that will shock the sheet out of the teachers, dazzle them at least. Nico drummed her fingers on the carton as she thought. Bakugo scanned the top 3 places. What we need is some way to communicate without them knowing, but we can't be obvious about it. They both looked to the bottom of the board. At least we're not Zero and the tiny perv. Looks like they're going to miss out one hell of a trip. Nico's tail made sharp flicks as she thought. Landmarks, she suddenly said, catching Bakugo off guard and making him jump a little. What if we used landmarks and big cities as a code for our attacks and maneuvers? We'd be able to communicate and confuse at the same time. That could work, but we would have to change it up after a few attacks so they don't catch on. He could see where she was going with her idea, but we also can't rely on me and Deku doing all the fighting. While we have quirks made for battle, we can't leave all the support to you if they target you again. In their last encounter, the teacher had focused the majority of their attacks on her. I know, I got completely destroyed. Nico groaned out. I need to bring my hand-to-hand combat up some more. I wouldn't say that, Bakugo blurted out. I just mean you're pretty strong as it is. We just need to work on bringing a little more focus to your hits. They both looked away from each other, feeling a little awkward with his half-compliment. I'm going to go, get ready for training. Nico stumbled over her words, looking for a reason to put distance between them. As she walked away, Bakugo couldn't help but notice 2 faint marks just above her left ankle. That must have been where she was burned. I wonder if she hates me for that? Oi cat freak, how's your leg? He called out to her before she got too far. Nico paused and looked down at her ankle, barely even noticed them now. She looked back at him over her shoulder, but thanks for carrying Pantai Thief. Now come on, we have to get ready for training. I want to be top of the board. They had gone for hours, Nico trying to dodge and avoid Bakugo's while trying to get her own hits in. By the end of the day both of them were sprawled out on their backs breathing. We should head back, wouldn't want to get locked in. Bakugo lightly kicked the sole of her foot. Naya, she swiped at him. You didn't go easy on me and on you expect me to walk home? You're out of your dmed mind. She was so tired that it took a lot out her just to do that. Bakugo looked around to make sure that they were alone. Give me your hands. She lifted her arms and he yanked her up, then slung her over his shoulder. Don't go thinking you're special. I'm only doing this because I wasn't going to leave you behind. Right, because it would be inconvenient if your strategist got left behind somewhere. Nico huffed, letting him carry her around like a sack of potatoes. You won't get too far without me. You need me more than I need you. He laughed. Okay, whatever makes you feel better. I just didn't want you to get caught by a teacher on your own like this. Could cost us points. He could hear a low purring sound. It turned out that Nico had passed out before they got back to the dorm. Sheet. Now what am I going to do? I can't leave her in the common area, so it's on me to put her in bed. It was a good thing that they were on the same floor, so he dropped his bag by the stairs and took Nico to her room. He looked around the room. The last time he had been in there he only picked her up, so he didn't get a good look around. It wasn't like any girl's room he expected. It wasn't too pink and overly girly. Nico had a couple racks of games and movies on either side of a small TV, and the small table she had been working at was leaning against the wall and out of the way. While there wasn't a lot in the room, it made Bakugo feel like it suited her just fine. Carefully he got Nico off of his shoulder and laid her down. Before he could leave she dug her nails into the bottom of this shirt. Mama, be safe today, she mumbled before letting him go and rolling over. What Nico said shocked him. He knew she would go quiet every time someone asked about her family, so to hear her telling her mother to be safe made him start to wonder what happened to make her avoid the subject. On his way out, a couple of pictures on her desk caught his attention. One was of a happy-looking family and the other was of a huge black cat looking down at a small dark red kitten who was holding her tail in her mouth, looking all proud of herself. I guess the black one is one of her parents. God, she looks like an idiot here. He laughed a little, putting the picture back. What the hell is wrong with me? I'm going soft or something. He shook his head, not sure of why he wanted to know more about her and why she never wanted to talk about her family. Nico woke up earlier than usual since she passed out before they got home. "God, I hurt. I'm not training with Bakugo today." She rolled her shoulders, then stretched out her back. "Wait a second, what the hell am I doing in bed? I would have figured he would have just dumped my butt on a couch downstairs." She looked down at her clock and saw there was still half an hour before her alarm went off, which meant the rest of the house was still sleeping and she could take her time in the bath. So she gathered up a change of clothes, her supplies, and went to enjoy a long soak. What she hadn't counted on was Bakugo not being able to sleep with the battle that was raging inside his head. He wanted to know more about Nico but wasn't sure why he even cared, just because every time she looked sad about something he wanted to do everything in his power to make her laugh and smile again. Since he couldn't sleep and the alarm was going to be going off soon anyways, he got up and headed for the bath. If he was lucky, no one else would be up and he could figure out why he had a certain cat girl on his mind. It didn't take Nico long to get cleaned up and relaxed in the tub. She started humming out one of her favorite songs to herself. It had always had a calming effect when this time of year came around. Early spring was always the worst for Nico because it made her think of her family. She missed them and it was almost time to go for a visit, which was always the worst for her since she's always come home and cry her eyes out. Nico had only been 7 years old when the news that her parents had died protecting some big important diplomat overseas, while they died doing something they loved, it always made her feel sad that they had left her at such a young age while she was still trying to figure out her quirks. For a little while she hated them for leaving and the diplomat for making them go, but after finding some old pictures and home movies, Nico had found a new path for herself. She wanted to be a hero just like her parents had been. She wanted to make them proud of her. With a sigh, she pulled herself out of the water and finally got dressed. Once she started to hear some of the others starting to wake up. Coming out while rubbing her towel over her hair, she almost walked right into Bakugo. "Watch where you're going, cat freak. I didn't think you'd be up after crashing last night." He got her attention by flicking her forehead, rubbing the spot between her eyes. "Of course I'd be up early. Udemanier tried to kill me yesterday." She looked at him and realized he wasn't wearing a shirt. The sight of him like that shorted out her brain, and she couldn't really think of what else she had wanted to say. "Have you seen if the board updated yet?" he asked, not noticing that she was staring at his bare torso. "Abs," she blurted as he lifted an eyebrow at her. "Absolutely, it should have changed by now." Nico dashed past him, hoping he would catch on to her obvious blunder. "Come on, let's see if there has been any movement." Nico only stopped long enough to see that they had reclaimed their placement from the day before. There must have been teachers around to see us going all out. She looked to see who had top spot and noticed the date. "Hey, you think you and Aizu and handle a day without me on Friday? I got something to do and I'm going to be gone all day." I could handle anything thrown our way on my own." He tried boasting, but when it didn't get a reaction from her, he looked over so see her walking away. "Everything all right? You should know what happens to curious cats. It doesn't end well for them," she warned, not turning around. "I'm skipping out on people today. I'll be down for dinner so you don't have to worry about me." The week passed without any big incidents, but because she was so distracted by midweek their team had fallen to near the bottom. Izuku tried to comfort her about it while Bakugo grumbled and complained. Nico gave them a half-hearted promise that they will get back to the top in no time. Even though she had turned off her alarm the night before, Nico was up at 6 since it had become a habit at this point. "I could hide out here until everyone leaves, that way I don't have to face the questions of where I'm going." She sighed, laying on her back, but that didn't help because she became restless in no time and gave up on hiding. She didn't get dressed yet. She had almost an hour before she had to meet All Might at the main gate. It was the only way she could get permission to leave the school grounds during the week was to have a teacher take her, so she agreed to have him drive her out to the cemetery and back. "What the hell are you doing up? I thought you didn't have to go to class today." Bakugo's voice grabbed her attention from the kitchen. "Why bother getting up if you don't need to?" "I couldn't sleep. I thought I should eat before getting dressed." She tried to not sound miserable. "It's going to be a while before I'll get the chance to eat again." Giving up on trying to find something to eat, Nico turned around to see Bakugo and Izuku with a small tray of food. "Is that for me? You didn't have to go out of your way for me. We thought you might be hungry and not wanting to bother with people this morning." Izuku held out the tray, You've been off all this week, so we thought this would cheer you up a little. He offered her a small smile. Their sweet gesture warmed her somber mood a little. Thank you, it must have taken you a while to make all this. She smiled down at the waffles that were clearly homemade. Can either of you tell me what a waffle is? She looked at them to see them staring at her as if she'd lost her mind. A pancake with abs. She laughed at her own horrible joke as the guys just groaned. Go eat and no jokes. Bakugo ordered, pushing her out of the kitchen. Like you said, it's going to be a long day for you. I really mean it. Thank you so very much for everything, and I'm sorry for bringing us down. She went and ate while they got changed for the day ahead for them. Nico had worn the same thing on the day she went to visit her parents' grave, an old leather jacket that had belonged to her mother and a black ribbon with a bell on her tail. It was the only time she ever did anything like that. Her mother had to keep a bell on her at all times because she had a habit of wandering off without a sound. She looked down at the choker in her hand. The pendant was a large tiger's eye stone that her aunt had given her for getting into UA. It had been a family tradition to give the children a special stone when they came of age to mark their rank within the family. The tiger's eye was the stone given to the one that was going to be the third in command, to be an advisor to the head of the family. With one last look in the mirror as she put on the choker and to make sure that she looked all right, she knew that she look was complete. I wish you guys could see me now, you'd be so proud. She fixed the picture of her and her parents before heading back down. Nico came down to the common area to see her teammate not in their uniforms. Both of them had on a nice pair of breathes and a dress shirt. Well, you two look fabulous. Where are you going? Her voice brought their attention to her. All Might said we were coming with you today. Izuku answered, you look amazing, almost like some kind of action star. Thanks, I've never heard anyone call me that before. Nico looked over to see Bakugo drooling a little. See something you like? She laughed as he looked away with a little blush tinting his cheeks. Shut up, it's just the first time you hadn't covered up with one of those stupid sweaters, he growled. Any idea why we're being dragged along with you? She shook her head. No, I was forced into having a teacher take me, but I didn't expect them to send you two as well. She didn't want them to see her at her weakest and most vulnerable, but she would just make an excuse to hide out later. I'm glad that I'll be able to introduce the guys to my parents. You still haven't told us much about them, Izuku said as she passed them. Are they some kind of big-time heroes? They were, was all she said on the matter. Come on, we're going to be leaving soon. For the most part, Nico paid little attention to the chatter from the others, only listening just enough to know when to give an answer. She kept her answers to a couple of words and to the point. She didn't really feel like talking much and just leaned her head against the window and watched the scenery pass by. Once they were out of the car, Bakugo watched as Nico hesitating. Well, that does explain why she always avoids the questions about her parents. But why not say something about why she was so off the last few days? The sound of Nico's bell brought him out of his thoughts. She had taken off running toward a couple that hadn't been too far off. Auntie Nina, Uncle Nicholas, sorry we took so long getting here. She flung herself at the mountain of a man with jet black hair. Don't you worry about it, Runt, we just got here too. The rest of the family had come and gone, just the way you like it. He caught her without a second thought. We've missed you since school started. Nico rubbed her cheek against his with a huge smile on her face. Stop spoiling her, tz. We can't have her getting all sappy every time she sees you, the blonde woman snapped as he put Nico back down. I thought I told you to stop jumping at him like that, kid. Your mother trusted me with making sure ready to take your position. She continued to scold Nico as she flattened her ears down. Sorry, Auntie, I just missed both of you so much. Nico said, then looked back to the others. I was sent with friends. I'd like for you to meet Izuku Midoriya and Katsuki Bakugo. As they got closer, both boys could see that Nico's aunt and uncle both had cat-like ears and tail. They also saw that they had the same gold-colored eyes as Nico. Guys, this is my Aunt Nina and my Uncle Nicholas. They are my mama's brother and sister. Nice to meet you. Izuku offered his hand out to Nick. It's been a great time getting to know your niece. Doesn't someone have manners? Nina commented, scanning Bakugo. You're the ones Nico writes about. It's good to know that we can trust her to you while she's at school. God, will you ease up, sis? The old man isn't here, you can relax. Nick shook Izuku's hand, then lifted Nico up to his shoulder. Come on, little miss, you've got someone to say hello to. They stopped by a grave that looked well looked after and had all kinds of offerings left. from flowers to small plates of food. "Hi Mama, Papa," Nico whispered as she slid down from Nick's shoulder. "I brought friends with me this year. Aizu and Bakugo have been the best since I changed classes." Bakugo noticed that there had been a picture left by someone. It was a copy of one of the ones Nico had in her room. Watching her place an offering of her own, he caught sight of the names. Nami, Shadow Panther, Gata 2 times X times minus 2X times X, and Parker was Gear, Gata 2 times X times minus 2X times X. My sister was the strongest of the three of us, so when our family was offered a protection detail there was no hesitation for her. Parker was asked to go along to make sure the security systems were running at the highest possible settings. He was always working the same jobs as Nami since they left school. Nina explained when she caught the boys staring. It was only supposed to be a simple few days making sure everything was under control, but there was an attack and we lost both of them. Nico was only 7 when we took her, and it was a rough couple years. She's changed since meeting you too. I don't know what you've done, but don't change it. Nick added, clapping Bakugo on the shoulder. You actually managed to get her out of those oversized sweaters she lived in. She still wears them during class, but she's started leaving the hood down more often. Izuku admitted, when did that even start? For a few months after we lost Nami, all the kids in her school would poke fun at her for one reason or another. No matter what she tried, nothing changed, so we thought it would be better to move her to a different school, and that was when she started keeping her ears and tail hidden. Nick gave the small girl a sad look. It doesn't help that she's the runt compared to all the other kids in the family, so they would pick on her for it too, so she used the baggy clothes as a shield against the world. I may be the runt of the litter, but you taught me to kick butt? Nico boasted, wiping her face a little. And while I still haven't taken you down, someday I will, and then I'll be able to be a hero like my parents. She held out her fist to Nick, who bumped it with his own. You can try, little miss, but don't you get in over your head, he laughed, ruffling up the hair between her ears. You should get back to school, but the three of you need to come for a visit sometime soon. We'll come by soon enough. If anything comes up I want to know. Nico waved before grabbing onto the guys and dragged them behind her. I'll hold you to that, Nick called after them, and you two better look after our kit. I don't want to have to come looking for you, he warned with a huge smile on his face. The boys knew that even while he was smiling, the ever-real threat of him hunting them down shook them a little. Once back at the dorm, Nico disappeared into her room saying something about homework she wanted to get ahead on. They knew she was lying, but let her go since they knew better than to press the matter. I wonder why she hadn't said anything about her parents before. We would have understood. Izuku mused as he watched Bakugo drop onto of the couches. I guess there's still so much we don't know about her. I would have thought she would have wanted people to know her parents were heroes. You're being a dumbass. Would you go around saying that you were connected to a hero family and painting a target on yourself? Bakugo snapped at him. Just because she's here doesn't mean she's safe from villains. You should know that. He thought about what Nick had said about how Nico would hide away from the world, keeping her guard up all the time. I guess you've got a point, Izuku started to say when the sound of Nico's bell caught his attention. He looked over to see her coming down the stairs with a small stack of videos and a couple of boxes of tissues in her hands. Normally I would watch these on my own and have a good long ugly cry, but I think I want to change that this year. She looked over at them. I mean, I could just go back upstairs if you don't want to. Her ears drooped a little with her shyness. Bakugo pushed himself up from his seat and took the videos from her and started setting everything up without a word. It was almost like he was on autopilot as he did everything, leaving Nico standing there a little shocked. I think that's his way of saying stay, Izuku said as he nudged her a little toward the couch. I wouldn't mind either. This must mean a lot for you to want to share with us. The three of them spent the rest of the day watching the home movies of Nico and her parents. She had put herself between them, making so they had a shield on either side to keep the world away. At some point she had slipped out of her jacket and used it as a blanket before nodding off on Bakugo's shoulder. Oi Deku, give me a hand, he quietly hissed. I can't move. Izuku looked over to see Nico cuddling into him. With a nod, Izuku gently lifted her, allowing Bakugo to slip out from under her. Should we try to move her? He carefully put her back down, trying not to wake the sleeping cat. Nah, leave her. She'll be up in a little bit. Bakugo waved him out before fixing the jacket. If not, I'll send someone to come get her when food's ready. Nico stirred at little. Thank you, she muttered quietly. Katsuki, he hadn't been expecting to hear her to thank him, but it made him feel good knowing that she liked having him with her. Waking up slowly from her nap, Nico noticed that she was alone on the couch. I guess they had other things to do. She stretched out a little before checking the time. Wow, I slept most of the afternoon, no wonder they left. Oh good, you're up. Nico looked over to see Achiko coming over to her. I wanted to see if you could keep Bakugo busy tomorrow while we set up. Her head wasn't fully awake yet. What's tomorrow? She asked, smoothing out parts of her hair that felt like sticking up. I don't have a problem doing that. We have team training in the morning, so it shouldn't be an issue. It's his birthday, Achiko reminded her. We talked about it earlier this week. Nico tried to search her memory, hoping to recall anything but failed to do so. I'm sorry, I guess I had so much on my mind, but yeah, I'll think of something to keep him out of the house after we finish up with training, she promised, trying to think of some excuse to get him away from the house. It had taken Nico all night and most of the morning to figure out the best way to convince Bakugo to go out with her until the others were ready. Hey Pantai Thief, I need your help with something, she said as they walked back to the dorm. Everyone else has other stuff to do, so you're coming with me. She didn't give him a chance to say no. Tisuch, what if I have other plans? Did you even think of that? He didn't have any plans, but he wanted to see if he could make her sweat a little. I know for a fact you don't, that's why I'm telling you to go get changed and we're going out. She wasn't going to let him get out of it, she had a backup plan in case he started protesting. Fine. He agreed, it was better than sitting around bored. But it better not be anything super boring because I'll kick you, but if I'm bored out of my head, like you could take me. Nico laughed as she headed up the stairs first. Just don't take forever. I won't be waiting for you all day. Bakugo had expected she had needed his help with something important, but when they came up to Cyber Cafe he was so very confused. What the hell are we doing here? He looked down at the little cat girl as she pulled him inside. I thought you said you needed help with something. Lightly turning on her heel, Nico spun around to smile at him. Yeah, I need your help beating these noobs into the floor. I can't enter a pairs tournament on my own and you're the only one at my skill level. She knew the small ego slide would work. What better way to spend a Saturday than showing off a little? He couldn't really argue with that logic, so what are we waiting for? Let's show them how it's done. That's what I thought. Nico smiled at herself as they went up to the counter. Well, look what the cat dragged in. The guy behind the counter laughed when he noticed them. You joining in the tourney, Shadow Cat? You do know you'll need a partner this time. I got one, Cody, thank you very much. Nico huffed. And I will have you know that we will win this one. I've seen the teams and I can tell you right now that they don't stand a chance. A favorite hideout of yours, cat freak? Bakugo asked, as Nico started filling out the tournament form. Yeah, these losers are just sore that I won the last time I entered solo. She slid the paper to him. Just need to throw down a name for yourself and we're set. She had taken care of the team name already. Hidden Threat? Yeah, that seems like a fitting name for us. Bakugo scribbled down a name and slid it back to Nico. Hey now, I was having an off day. This time you won't get so lucky. Cody took the form her and pointed them to a couple of terminals. Just wait for the green light and try not losing too early. I want another shot at you. Yeah, okay, we'll see about that. Nico waved them off as they went and got themselves set up. Like I'd let them think they could beat us. Just like at school, we'll use the same code to communicate. No point in letting them know what we're doing. They had been flying through the rounds, never needing more than a few words between them while the other team freaked out. It was down to the last round, Nico and Bakugo up against Cody and his buddy. Just give it up, Shadow Cat, you don't stand a chance against us, she heard him over the headset. Second place is just as good as first, it just comes with a smaller prize. Please, go talk to someone else. Nico looked over to Bakugo. You ready to win? Don't you know it? He held his fist to her. Let's show them not to mess with us. Nico bumped her fist into his and focused on the screen in front of her. Everything was going smoothly and they were about to beat their opponents when Nico's phone started buzzing away in her pocket. Sheet, that's probably the others. I must be time to head back. She had let herself become too distracted and was launched off the map. CRP, but that's fine, we'll still win if Bakugo can get them. Everyone around them watched with bated breath as he made quick work of the one that had taken her out and was closing in quick on Cody. Time was running out and it was now or never to take the shot, and with some luck Bakugo got him and ended the game with less than a second on the clock. "Holy sweet sheik, you did it!" Nico exclaimed, grabbing Bakugo's face and gave him a quick kiss without thinking. I don't know why I just did that." She had a strip of pink going across her face. They didn't move for a few moments, only being brought back to reality by her phone going off again. "You going to get that? It must be important if they called again." Bakugo smirked at her as she busied herself with answering the call, still a little flustered. "Hey hothead, shadow your girlfriend or something?" Cody grabbed his attention. "She's never actually brought someone to the doubles tourneys." "We're just friends." He saw Cody lift an eyebrow, questioning if that was actually the truth. "I guess she didn't like anyone enough to bring them here." Cody wasn't convinced by his explanation. "Yeah, it's pretty clear she likes you plenty. But you do got some skills, I have to admit. Next time we're running a team tournament you need to come by." Bakugo was about to say something when Nico grabbed his hand. "We got to go. Cody, I'll be back to collect that prize later." She pulled him to his feet and practically dragged him behind her. "Jesus woman, you're going to rip my arm off, you keep this up." He managed to pull his arm free. "Where's the fire all of a sudden?" "We gotta get back. Something's come up back home and they need us," was the best excuse she could think of as she waved down a taxi. Kiri didn't give me any more info than that, but it sounded pretty big. From what Nico had said, Bakugo had expected some kind of attack, but what they walked into wasn't anything he had been prepared for. While Nico had been keeping him busy, everyone else had put together a feast for his birthday. He had honestly thought that none of them remembered. "You knew about this, didn't you?" He turned to Nico, who just smiled and went to join the others. "And what if I did? What are you going to do about it?" She had been amazed that he hadn't figured her out sooner. "Hurry up and get over here, the food's going to get cold." All the food were from all his favorites from some of the local places. "Just how long you lot have been planning this?" "All week," Izuku answered. "Nico was only brought into it last night. We needed someone who didn't know the whole plan to keep you away while we set up." "So when you said everyone else had plans," Bakugo started putting the pieces together. "Clever, I should have known something was up." "Yeah. Just shut up so we can eat already," Nico said as Bakugo finally joined them at the table. Nico waited until she was sure that everyone else on their floor was off doing something else. She used her cat form to sneak into Bakugo's room with something small that she had managed to pick up for him while they had been out. She would have given it to him with everyone else, but she was still feeling a little awkward about what happened at the cyber cafe. Gods above, why the hell did I have to kiss him like that? It just felt so very right at the moment. She scolded herself as she padded down the hall. "I don't know if I'm going to be able to face him again without turning bright red. God just kill me no." It was just her luck that he had left the door open a crack, so she managed to nudge it open just enough to slip in. With a little bit of a run, Nico leapt onto the bed so she could leave her package somewhere he could find it. "Look like there's a cat burglar sneaking around now." The sound of Bakugo's voice made her freeze in place. "Come to snag a pair of my underwear or something?" He couldn't help tease her. Nico wasn't sure if he could see the blush through her fur, but she wasn't about to shift back to correct him and risk him seeing how red her face was. So she just put the package down and meowed at him. "I'm going to take it, that is for me?" "Why so shy of a sudden? Normally you would have a comeback loaded and ready to go." He noticed that she hadn't shot back at him. "This got something to do with kissing me?" Nico didn't want to let it show that he was right. She just sat down and started cleaning her face a little. "Okay, I see how it is." He knew he was right, it just gave just something to use when he wanted to tease her. "So other than dragging me out, you managed to get something for me too? How thoughtful." He went to sit next to her, looking at what she had brought. Before he opened it, she nudged his arm with her face and took off back to her room. What the hell was that about? He heard her door close hard. He looked down at the package and found a note attached. "I spotted these and knew they would be perfect. It's your birthday, so just enjoy it. I'll go and get the prize from Cody tomorrow. I hope you had fun with me today because I know that I'd like to do it again sometime soon." Bakugo opened the wrapping and found a small box of spicy chocolates. He remembered them passing the small chocolate shop and Nico said she needed to pop in quickly. It had been an interesting day for him to say the least, but what had caught him by surprise was Nico telling him that he was going out with her, and then when he had won the tournament for them, did she really mean she didn't know why, or could there be another reason? He wondered, leaning back on the bed. Would it really be so bad if she was his girlfriend? I mean, there are worse people to fall for, but could she even love someone like me? While Bakugo contemplated his feeling, Nico was trying to sort out her own. Oh my god, what the hell is wrong with me? I should have just left it somewhere else for him to find. She panicked, scrubbing her hair wildly, trying to get the blush on her face under control. Nico started pacing her room until she caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror. Her cheeks a bright red and her hair disheveled and messy. Holy see, if someone sees me like this I'm totally screwed. She fumbled with her brush, trying to make herself a little more presentable. Once she had managed to get herself calmed down, she noticed there were a couple of messages on her phone. One from each of her teammates. She answered Izuku's first since she wouldn't be able to focus once she answered Bakugo. Are you alright? My phone just showed me a huge spike in your heart rate. Nico laughed a little. I wanted to ask you for a hand with something. Do you think we can go somewhere for lunch tomorrow? Quickly typed out her answer. I'm fine, just saw a spider. Creepy thing caught me off guard. Yeah, I wouldn't mind helping. Meet me at the gate for 11. I have an errand I need to run anyways. She sent it off and then turned her attention to the other message that demanded her attention. Yo cat freak, you have a heart attack or something? I'm going with you to get the prize tomorrow. I'll meet you at the cafe for one, so don't be late. She blinked a few times while she tried to figure out how she would explain why she was beet red the entire time. Tomorrow is going to be one hell of a day. I must have kicked puppies and babies in a past life to deserve this. She flopped back onto the bed. I'm not getting any sleep tonight. Sleeping had been an impossible task for Nico. She spent most of the night flipping and flopping, her mind running a million miles an hour trying to figure out how she was going to be able to face Bakugo after the events of the day before. She managed to get lucky and avoided him while heading out to meet Izuku. So what's the plan for today? Nico walked backwards a little. I'm not sure what I can help you with, but I'll try. Ah, well, I was hoping you could practice something with you. Izuku asked shyly. I've been wanting to ask Uraraka out on a date, but every time I start to ask I get flustered. Now that's something I can definitely help with, and you already did a great job last night asking me. Nico smiled. She liked knowing that he trusted her enough to ask for her help. But I guess it was a very different thing asking a friend to lunch than the girl you like. Izuku nodded, turning a bright shade of red. Alright, so what you want to do first, have an idea of what you want to do. In this case we're going for lunch. Now you can go one of two ways. The first is have a place picked out that you know she likes, or the other is letting her pick. I would say taking her somewhere she likes would be the better of the options because it shows you've been paying attention. Nico continued her lecture as they walked. So where would you take me? I am curious to see if you remember what I like. She watched him flounder for a bit while he did his best to think of what she'd like. I think got an idea. Come on, he grabbed her hand and pulled her along. Bakugo had left a little earlier than he had planned. He wanted to stop by the chocolate shop to see if he could find a small something to thank Nico for making his birthday interesting. What he hadn't counted on, seeing her sitting on the patio of a little restaurant having lunch with Izuku. It bothered him a little for some reason, seeing them laughing and talking about whatever seemed interesting. He got closer so he could actually hear what it was they were talking about without them seeing him. So I've been meaning to say this for a long time. I really like you and I'd like to do this more. Izuku stammered out, but Bakugo didn't stick around to hear her answer. He took off, not want to cause a scene for something that he clearly didn't have business overhearing. Shaky dismount and you almost nail the landing, but you're still going to need a little work. Maybe try not being so nervous. This is Achiko you have in mind, so she's going to be just as flustered as you are. You're going to need to relax and speak from the heart. You'll be just fine. Nico said as she checked the time. I gotta get going. Bakugo is meeting me at the cyber cafe to collect our prize from yesterday. Think you can handle asking Achiko out now? Yeah, I think I'm ready. Thanks a lot. To be honest, I felt a little stupid asking for your help. Izuku waved down the waiter to get the bill. I'll see you back at the dorm? Yeah, I expect you to tell me how things go. Nico ruffled his hair before taking off. She felt like she was running late for something super important and danced through the crowds to make it on time. Why in the hell am I freaking out? It's not like we're going on a date. She suddenly stopped dead in her tracks. Holy sweet hell, what if it was his way of asking me out? Oh, by everything that is green on this earth am I stupid. There wasn't any time for her to go back to the dorm as touch up a little, so she was going to have to make do with what she had on and hope for the best. She walked the rest of the way, using the time to calm herself and get her head together. "Hey Z, you just missed your boyfriend?" Cody said when she came up to the counter. Did the lovebirds get into a fight? He was sure said about something. He teased her a little. 1, he's not my boyfriend, 2, I haven't seen him today, and 3, we haven't fought about anything. Nico snipped at him. She went for another point when something on the wall caught her eye. Really, Cody, a kiss cam? She pointed to the picture of her and Bakugo over his shoulder. We needed a picture of the winners for the wall. I thought since it was the only decent one we had gotten yesterday we had to use it. He smirked, noticing that Nico was becoming embarrassed. "Oh, look at the blushing kitty. We may have lost, but I think seeing you like this is so much better than any victory." No, that's not right, she hissed. "I loathe you, Cody, and I will remember this insult next time we meet up in a match." She snapped the gift card from his hand as he laughed at her a little. "Whatever, I got your email so I'll let you know when the next tournament is." He waved her off as she left. "And don't forget to bring your boyfriend with you too," he called after her as she flipped him off. Nico had tracked Bakugo back to the school, where he was doing some target practice. "Hey, I missed you at the cafe," she called over to him, but he just ignored her. "Oi, jackass, don't you ignore me. What the hell happened to you today?" She picked up a chunk of debris and threw it at him. "Didn't you have something more important to do today?" he snapped. "I'm sure that you had a great time with that Deku." He turned to face her, seeing her stunned look. "You spied on us. I don't know what you saw, but maybe you should get all the information before jumping to conclusions." She wanted to get in his face, but the cold look in his eyes stung. "Fine, you can be an a-hole, see if I care." She felt like he had slapped her. He had misunderstood what she and Izuku had been up to, but it felt like he didn't really care for the truth. "Knock yourself, jackass." She turned to walk back to the dorm without listening to him call after her. Nico spent the rest of the day in her cat form, lounging on the backs of chairs and couches. Anytime Bakugo even looked in her direction, she flicked her tail dismissively and moved to another seat. By the time they finished dinner, she had curled up in Kirishima's lap just to PSS him off. "You know, I don't think he deserves this kind of punishment." "Yeah, Bakugo can be in but the silent treatment is a little much, don't you think?" Kirishima said as Nico made herself comfortable. "I'm not going to pretend I know what happened, but maybe talking things out might help." She just glared at him over her shoulder. She really didn't feel up to talking about anything with anyone. It was just easier for her to be a cat, that way she could still spend time with everyone, while avoiding the whole talking business. Alright, point made. Kirishima knew when he was beat, but he had to try one last time. Just give him another chance. I get he screwed up massively because he's dense, but that shouldn't be enough to DMN him. Got up, rubbed her face on his cheek as a way to say thank you, before jumping onto the back of the couch and sauntered down to where Bakugo was sitting. He didn't notice her. She bit his ear before heading upstairs. She had made it to the 4th floor landing before he caught up with her. "What the hell? You won't even look at me all night and then you come up and try to rip my ear off." Bakugo snapped as she shifted back to normal, sitting on the stairs. "Well, if you weren't such an a-hole we wouldn't be having this argument." She leaned back on her elbows. "Now you care to explain why the hell you followed me in Aizu?" "I didn't follow anyone. I just happened to be passing by," he said, but she wasn't convinced. "I stuck around long enough to hear him say he likes you." Nico put up a hand to stop him. "First, you should have just come over instead of being some kind of creepy stalker, and second, you are so way off base that you can't even see the field." "But you were on a date. You can't tell me otherwise," he snapped as she smiled and shook her head. "It wasn't a date, you dumbass. Aizu asked for my help so he could get a little advice. You got your panties all bunched over that. I bet if you stuck around for another 5 seconds you would have heard what I had to say." She couldn't help but laugh at the dumbstruck look on his face. "You're such an idiot. Kiri was right, you are so very dense." Shut up. How the hell was I supposed to know?" Bakugo tried covering up his embarrassment. "So why the hell not just tell me when you found me earlier?" That killed Nico's laughter. "Because you looked like you weren't going to listen to me no matter what I was going to say," she admitted. "You looked like I had hurt you." She became serious as he took a step closer. Nico couldn't read the look in his eyes. For some reason it felt like it, like you had ripped something from me. He leaned over her, making Nico's face turn a bright red with how close he was. I couldn't stand seeing you spending time with that demon Deku like that, and to hear him say that he liked you, I wanted to blow him through a wall. She could feel her heart pounding against her chest. Well, you should have just asked about. It's not like I was hiding anything. Nico managed to escape into the hall. It's getting late. See you in the morning. She fled to her room and hid for the rest of the night. Nico dug around for her phone, hoping that she could talk with the only person she ever trusted when she got flustered. Hey Runt, it's not like you to call at this time of night. Nick said as he picked up. Everything all right? I don't really know, so remember the friends I brought with me on Friday? She asked before launching into her tale, explaining everything that had happened in the last 2 days. So what do you think I should do? Nick roared with laughter at his niece's plight. Wow Runt, you sure know how to make one hell of a mess. I gotta come see you soon, just to watch you trip over your own tail. Once he caught his breath, Nick became a little more serious. But it sounds to me like that blondie might just like you. I was hoping you'd say it was just in my head and I was imagining things. Nico groaned, opening the window to let a little air in. I don't know what to do. I mean, I shouldn't have to worry about grandfather setting up an arranged marriage for me, so should I see if he actually does like me that way? There was a long pause. You should do what you feel is right. That's all I can really say, Kit. Nico knew he was being serious because he didn't call her Runt. I know that Nami would have wanted you to chase the boy if it made you happy. Thanks, Uncle Nick. I knew calling you was the right idea. She smiled when he mentioned her mother. So should I be expecting a surprise visit from you in the near future? You better believe it. Oh, and before I forget, clear your weekend. I'm kidnapping you for your birthday hunt. Nick had to pull the phone away from his ear as Nico let out a screech of glee. He had called it a hunt, but it was really just the two of them going off to a cabin and doing absolutely nothing other than lounge around and eating junk. You are so awesome. You just happened to make the top of my favorite uncle list, she laughed. Last I checked I was your only uncle. I mean that as if you haven't gone and picked up any others while you've been at school, he joked with her. You should get some sleep, Runt. You've got school in the morning. Thanks again. I feel so much better now I've talked to you. She hung up and flopped back on her bed, excited to see the weekend and doing jack all with her favorite person. It was a slow climb back up the leaderboard, back to where they had been before Nico's distracted state. By the end of the week they had settled in 5th place, which made Nico feel extra excited for the weekend. It gave her something to talk about while they had their weekend. What Nico didn't know was that her uncle had shown up in the middle of the day on Friday and arranged to be a special opponent for her team. Nick had wanted to see just how well they worked together and if Bakugo was really worthy of having her all worked up over him. He stood out in the middle of the field in his beast form, a giant black lion, and roared, getting the attention of the whole school. It seems a challenge has been issued. Aizawa looked over to Nico and the boys. You three, this one's for you. They went to see just who they were going up against. Uncle Nick? I thought you were coming later to get me. What are you doing here now? Nico was very confused to why her uncle had shown up early as didn't feel like telling her. When he didn't shift back, she knew something was off. Guys, I think we're going to have a rather large problem. She fell back behind them, her normal starting position. We're going up against the demon lion himself. Yeah, I'd say we got a problem. Izuku shifted back a little. What's the plan? I really don't know. He's big enough to take all 3 of us out in one swing. We're going to have to adapt a hit and run formation, and we're going to need to stay spread out that way he can't get all of us. Nico quickly ran through all of their battle plans. Right, let's start with a flashbang and see how that works for us. The boys nodded and spread out a little. Nico pulled a little flash paper bomb out from a pocket and tossed it to Bakugo, who used it to create a distraction for them to scatter so Nick wouldn't be able to swipe at them. As they studied the lion, most of the other classes came out to see what all the commotion was about. Aizu, let's do a higher elevation into a reverse waterfall. Nico got a nod from Izuku as she started jogging at him. From there, we're going to need some temple bells. It was she signaled to Bakugo that she was going to send the next attack his way. Once she was sure the guys knew the plan, she picked up the pace and ran right at Izuku, who launched her into the air, and from there she tossed a couple of bells they had worked on to amplify the sound of his explosions. As Bakugo got him set with the bells, Izuku rushed in on Nick and tried to knee him just under the chin to get him to rear up, but unfortunately Nick was ready for and easily batted Izuku away like he wasn't even there. The blaring sound from the bells was enough to make Nick stagger a little as Nico dropped down on him with her heel, but it didn't keep the large cat down for long and he turned on her and swiped. His attack didn't hit her as she had shifted to her cat and his huge paw flew right over her head. Mustering up all her might, Nico let out what she called her house cat roar. She used to signal a strategist change and gave control over to Izuku. Nico just hoped that he heard her, because they were so far apart. "Kaken, Nico up and over," Izuku called out, making the two snap into action. They managed to get under Nick and before he could react they dug their heels into his ribs and flipped him head over heels, landing on his back. "Tag, this should be the last attack." He handed the final attack to Bakugo. "I hope so." Nico rolled onto her feet, breathing heavily. That maneuver was not made for her to be part of, but this worked since they caught Nick by surprise. "I don't know how much more I can take, I'm still pretty beat from our fight this morning." "Then we'll need the big bang," Bakugo said and the others grinned at him. They had been waiting for the right time to use this one. "I think that's a smashing idea." Nico got her second wind, passing him a small cloth pyramid. "Just make sure I'm clear, you don't want to know what singed fur smells like." She went back to being a cat and charged straight at her uncle as he got back onto his feet. She was going to distract Nick by weaving through his legs and under him, keeping him focused on her while the guys got into position. Once he was ready, Bakugo let out a whistle signaling that he was ready. As Nico got clear, he launched what could only be described as a fireworks display to keep Nick's attention off of Izuku as the small boy caught the lion around the neck and held him until he gave up and shifted back, wearing Izuku like a necklace. "Alright, you win. I know when I'm beat." Nick raised his arms in surrender as Izuku dropped back to the ground. "All of you did a great job and I think the three of you have earned a 3-day weekend." Nico gave him a suspicious look. "I thought that this weekend we just us," she said, picking up her uniform and snapping the dirt from it. "And just how did you manage getting all of us out of class for 3 whole days?" "Team training." Nick grinned. They both knew his definition of training was going to get firewood together or refilling the chip bowl. "So go get your bags ready, I'm not going to be waiting around all day." The ride up to the cabin had been a long one, so Nico used her time to nap. But once they pulled up she jumped out of the car and went straight inside to claim her usual spot. "Hey, get your backside back out here and help," Nick shouted after her. "But you're all so much bigger and stronger than I am, plus you usually let me start being lazy right out of the car." She whined, coming back out to help. She looked at the bags he had piled on the porch and picked out a tiny light-looking bag. "Look, I'm helping." She held it out of Nick to see. "You big ham, I know for a fact that you're stronger than that." Nick took the light bag from her and gave one that was twice the size. "Just because we're not going to be doing sheet all for 3 days doesn't mean you get to start slacking off now." She stuck her tongue out at him, before taking the bag inside and going back out to get a couple more. "But you said this was going to be team training." Izuku was confused by what was going on. Nico and Nick looked at each other and laughed. "And if we actually did what we said we were doing out here, Auntie Nina would never have allowed us to start this tradition." Nico grabbed the last bag from the porch. "This weekend is about doing nothing but sitting around and relaxing. It's how we celebrate my birthday every year." "Well, Demon, why couldn't you have come last weekend?" Bakugo slung his bag over his shoulder. "I wouldn't mind taking a few days to do nothing. I couldn't justify with my sister why we'd be doing 2 weekends back to back. But we have enough junk to kill an elephant, so I hope you boys can handle it." Nick grabbed Nico and put her up on his shoulder. "Now we need to swear you to secrecy. If Nina ever finds out what we've been doing all this time, she'll kill me." "You wouldn't have brought them if you didn't think they would keep quiet?" Nico knew that Nick liked her friends, which was good as they were the only ones she really trusted. "Can we just get to being lazy already? I've been waiting all week for this." The cabin was the size of a large house, with enough rooms for a couple of families to use without having to share. "This place is huge. Just how big is your family?" Izuku marveled the size as Nico sprawled out on a love seat. "I don't really know. Hey Uncle Nick, just how many branches of the family are there?" She leaned her head back to look at him. "Last time I counted 5 or 6, but that could have changed in the last 10 years, so I can't really remember." Nick tossed a huge bag of marshmallows at her, making her squeal with glee. "But yeah, this place was built at a time when the family was small, so it was made to accommodate everyone all at once." Now we take turns using it for the most part, but no one dares take it this time of year, not since we started our hunting weekends. How'd that start? It seems a little random to just start one year. Bakugo asked, which he regretted when Nico's tail drooped a little. It was just after we lost Nami and Parker. Little Miss here was having a super rough time with everything, so I took it upon myself to get her away from home for a few days. At that time I really wasn't sure how to properly look after a kid, so we ended up having a weekend junk food and cartoons, but by the time we went home Nico was feeling so much better that she was actually smiling a little again, Nick explained as he dumped an armload of various bags and boxes. From then on it's just something we've always done. I'm sure Nina knows what we're not doing what we say we are, but she doesn't say anything because it helped get the runt smiling again. What's with the names? Do all of you have a name that starts with yen? Izuku had noticed that all of them had similar starting names. And why do you keep calling Nico Runt? When did we start playing 20 questions? Nick claimed an overly plush chair by the fireplace. It's not all of us that have N names, just the head of the family and the two advisors. Nami, me and Nino were triplets, so it was obvious that we'd be those three. The next heir has already been named our cousin Nagisa, and Nico here was named his third. As for calling her Runt, you want to get the appointment picture? No, but you're going to make me get it anyways. She sighed, putting her treat down, and went to grab a picture off the wall. You'll be able to tell which one's me. She handed the picture to Izuku, who passed it to Bakugo. You're tiny compared to those two. What the hell are they eating? Bakugo laughed as she snatched the picture back. Laugh it up, funny boy, I can kick your butt easily enough. She carefully hung it back on the wall. I'd been bigger if I hadn't been so sick when I was younger. Nagisa is only a month older, so I have some competition for the top spot. Nico slid back into her seat as Nick groaned. Don't tell me you're still on that. You know that the old man won't let you be the heir. So why do you keep putting yourself through that? It wasn't the first time he had to talk Nico down from challenging Nagisa, and it wasn't going to be the last. Mama was next in line. I should have gotten that title after her. Nico was a little insulted that her uncle wasn't on her side. Grandfather only made him heir because he is twice my size. And could eat you alive if he really wanted to. We've been over this. Nagisa is way out of your reach on your own. Look at today, it took the three of you to put me in a position where you could have actually beat me. On your own you're just not strong enough. Nick looked at the guys. Maybe one of you can finally talk sense into her. I've tried for years to get her to see how outmatched she is. Izuku was the first to speak up. I think you should listen to Nick. There's no point in putting yourself at risk just for a position. Nick gave her I told you so look as she threw a marshmallow at Izuku. If that, go big or go home. I say she can totally take down the brute. Bakugo added his opinion to the discussion, earning him a groan from Nick. I asked you to talk her down, now send her into the lion's den. Nick could see he wasn't going to win this argument, especially if the young blonde was encouraging her. Nico let out a huge yawn, the day finally catching up with her. It's been a hell of a day, I think I'm going to call a night. She waved to them before vanishing upstairs. Waiting until he was sure that Nico wouldn't hear them, Nick turned to the boys. I'm glad at least one of you has a brain. He fixed Bakugo with a glare. Nico won't admit it to herself, but she knows she doesn't stand a chance in hell against Nagisa. I made a promise to Nami that I wouldn't let anything happen to Nico, and I plan on making sure I keep that promise. So why not just tell her this? Izuku offered. I get the feeling that if she knew the truth then she might see things your way. What's so scary about the Nagisa guy? He just looks like a big dumb idiot. Bakugo said, knowing he wasn't winning any points with Nick, but there was something else he wasn't saying. It's not Nico you're afraid of getting hurt, or is it that there's something else attached to being head of the family? I really shouldn't be saying this to you too, but Nami was disowned when she married Parker. Nick went over to the mantel and found an old picture of him and his sisters. Our father was against it because there was someone already arranged for her, but she went and ran off with Parker. Nami never wanted Nico to be part of this life, but after she died, Nina and I took her in since Parker didn't have any living family and no one from the main house would take her, he explained. The old man made it clear that she was never going to get any position higher than third, as a way to punish her for what Nami did. The pair didn't know what to say. They couldn't help but feel a little sorry for their friend. Nico doesn't know any of this, does she? Izuku found the words first. Why not just tell her so she won't have her hopes crushed if she actually wins? Nick put the picture back. It would hurt her to know that her mother isn't the idol that Nico has made her out to be. I know that someday I am going to sit her down and tell her everything, but for now I wanted her to think that Nami was amazing at everything, he admitted, running a hand through his hair. I want you two to promise that you won't say anything. This is my burden and I should be the one she should hate. I don't think she could. Hate you, that is. Bakugo tried to reassure the older man. Almost every story she's told us has been focused around you. Nico will understand that you just wanted to keep her happy. Maybe you do have some brains after all. Nick smiled a little. You guys should call it a night. I'm sure Nico will want to show off the lake tomorrow. He shooed them upstairs, that way he could have a little longer with his own thoughts. The smell of a wood fire from the stove pulled Nico awake. It could only mean one thing. Uncle Nick's making breakfast. She smiled, rolling out of bed. I wonder what he's making this time. She knew that her uncle would make a huge spread for everyone, so she didn't have to hurry. As Nico headed down the stairs, she noticed Bakugo standing by the window with his back to her. It gave her a wicked idea. The silent huntress stalks up on her prey, who is completely unaware of the danger that is creeping up. She crept up on him, tapping his left shoulder before sliding right, then in front of him close to his face. He jumped back at the sudden appearance of the cat girl. What the hell? Where did you come from? Bakugo sputtered as Nico laughed at his reaction. That's what happens when you space out in a house with people who can move silently, she grinned. Come on, it smells like Uncle Nick has breakfast ready. It's lunch. You slept clean through the morning? Nick said as they went into the kitchen. I had a feeling you would, so us manly men took a trip into town and got the fixings for a special dinner. Why did you let me sleep? I would have come with you guys. She was a little disappointed that she had missed out on a trip into town. Wait, you said manly men, you hiding them in the car? She teased as she crossed her ankles on the seat in front of her. Runt, you're asking for it, Nick warned her as she stuck out her tongue. Why don't you and Blondie here go for a walk down to the lake once we're finished lunch? I need the little one for something so you two will have time to burn. Nico had a feeling it was Nick's way for her to test the waters, but Nico felt that was a risky move on his part. If things got weird between them, there was nowhere for her to hide. You sure about that? We could stick around and help, she offered. We go it, and it would ruin the surprise part of it if you helped. Nikki put down plates on the table. Oh, I talked to Nina this morning. Seems that the old man is working on a deal with the Todoroki family. There's going to be a formal meeting in a couple weeks, so try keeping yourself in one piece until then. The name caught Nico's interest. Todoroki, she repeated. It sounds really familiar, but I can't think of why. It was really bothering her that she couldn't remember why she knew the name. That's icy hot, he's in our class. Bakugo reminded her, you know, top of the leaderboard almost every morning. Oh, Shoto, the realization hit her like a lead brick. Wait, we're going to be having ties with Endeavor? Is grandfather out of his mind? We've never held ties with pros because we didn't want to get caught up in the politics of it all. Nico almost fell out of her chair. Nick shrugged. Don't blow a gasket. I can't tell you what he's thinking, but I don't think we're going to be tying the hero aspects together, just the business. He could tell Nico was starting to panic. Hey Runt, chill out. It's just a meeting, nothing to set in stone. Just relax and focus on today. That's something for another day. All right, but I think you're a little too calm about this. She turned her attention to Bakugo. I have a better idea than the lake, if you think you're up for it. Oh, I didn't even think about that. Nick was sure he knew what she was planning. I'll throw something together for you to take along. This sounds interesting, you're on. Bakugo was curious now. Just what could they be talking about? Just what is it you're planning? You'll see. I'm going to get changed and I'll be right back. Nico hopped up and jogged off. Nick watched her go. She must really trust you. She's got a special place that Nami would bring her all the time when they came here. She's going to take you there? Nick grabbed a few containers from the counter. It's going to take you guys most of the afternoon to get there and back, so it'll give me and Izuku time to prep the stone oven. Bakugo could tell the older man had something else in mind when he had told Bakugo to keep Nico distracted while they worked on dinner. What you playing at here? Why not send Deku with her instead? That's for me to know and for you to find out, was all Nick answered with as he loaded food into the containers. Nico led the way up a winding path that was steeper in places. You're going to love the view from the lookout, she called back to him. It's not too far off now. She pointed to the top of the hill before stopping to let Bakugo catch up. He had been having a hard time keeping up with the terrain. The path hadn't been built for someone without a beast form in mind. If you had told me that we'd be mountain climbing, I would have settled for the lake, he breathed, watching her crouch down and pick up a rock. You don't plan on using that on me, do you? Nico looked over at him confused for a minute. Huh? Oh no, this isn't for you. It's kind of a strange habit I started with my mama. She tucked the rock into a pocket. You'll see once we get to the top. Now come on, we don't have far to go. She took his hand so he wouldn't lag behind anymore. She hadn't lied about the view. They could see for miles and it looked just like an ocean of trees. Whoa, was all Bakugo could say as he caught his breath. On the lookout itself there was a couple stacks of rocks, and now it made a little sense why she picked one up. Carefully placing the rock on top of the smaller stack. I know this seems weird, but Mama said it was a way to leave our mark, that future generations can build on our foundation. She put a hand on the pile next hers. I know it sounds pretty crazy, but now that they're not with me, I have a place where I still feel them, like they're still here with me. Nico scrubbed at one of her eyes. Listen to me, I must sound insane. I don't think so, Bakugo offered as she turned to face him. This was a special place for you. He wasn't sure what else to say without telling her what Nick had said the night before. You don't have to go out of your way to make me feel better. The last year has been strange for me, and with everything that's happened over the last couple of weeks, it all has just compiled into a huge weird mess. Nico started watching him, hoping to see if there were any telltale signs of his feelings. Yeah, your family is kind of a big deal, so it must not be easy to talk to them. He started studying her back, both not sure of how to react to the other. But you got Nick in your corner, no matter what happens? He told you about Mama being shunned? Nico said, shocking him a little. Auntie Nina told me long ago when I asked her why grandfather would ignore me when we gathered for family meetings. Uncle Nick doesn't know that she told me, because he thinks it would hurt my feelings. So why not tell him you know? Then the pair of you won't have to step around the issue. It seemed strange to him that they would avoid something like this. Nico shook her head, because I know how it makes him act. It hurts him to talk about that time, and then he tried extra hard to make it seem like it's not a big deal. Why do you think he let me sleep in and take you guys to get stuff for the stone pizza oven? She had detailed their morning perfectly. You guys don't make any sense. He gave up trying to figure them out. But this view is killer. How is it there isn't a stream of people up here? He changed the topic, going over to the rail near the edge. We're on land that is owned by the family. Just about everything you can see from here is on the border. There are a couple other little cabins dotting the area. That way if everyone from the main family shows up, we're not all cramped into the big house. Nico joined him, taking in the view. No matter how many times I came here, I'll never get enough of this. There's a funny story behind how I got my name. Before Bakugo could ask, she launched into the story. So when Mama came up here just before I was born, she had brought Uncle Nick with her so he could run her back down to the house if anything happened. They got into a shouting match, and when she yelled his name, the echo made it sound like she had said Nicole. She pushed a loose strand of hair out of her face before continuing. That had ended the argument as they started laughing, and Mama said that if she had a girl that she would call me Nicole, and then Uncle Nick thought he was clever and said that I'd be an echo of him if she did that. So it's because of him I like being called Nico. The smile that she had on her face melted Bakugo. This was a completely different side of herself that she didn't show at the dorm. She was more open and talked more freely, like they were the only two around. That has to be the strangest thing I have ever heard, but I think it suits you. He liked that his words made her blush a little. It made his heart beat a little fast. My aunt would like it if I were a little more like her, but I like being close to him. I know I can always call Uncle Nick if things rough. She had to turn away from him as the look on his face was making her blush deeper than she would have liked. It's now or never, Katsuki, just ask her out. Bakugo coached himself. It's only 6 words, not the end of the world. He gathered up the courage and took a calming breath. Want to go out next Saturday? He stumbled through quickly, getting Nico to look back over at him. I mean, if you don't have anything else to do, that is. While it felt like she was going to pass out from how fast her heart was racing, Nico's smile widened. I love to, but you better find something that can top winning a gaming tournament. She laughed as his face turned the same shade of red as her own. Why don't we have a snack before heading back? It'll give your face time to go back to normal, she giggled, dropping the pack Nick had made up for them. I'm not the only one, you look like a tomato. Bakugo wasn't going to let her off the hook for teasing him. Wouldn't want Nick to think we've been up to no good up here. He smirked as her cheeks went a deeper red. Author's ramblings. I want to thank everyone for all the support. This last week has been rocky for me, and seeing that everyone enjoys this story had been good for keep morale up. I know this chapter is on the tiny side, but nothing else I had down with it didn't sound just right and sounded a little too forced. Want to keep the quality up a high level, and I would never put out anything I'm less than pleased with. One last thing before I wrap up my rambling. If there's anything I've missed, please tell me. I don't mind having things pointed out in a polite manner. It's a great help because I tend to get focused on moving forward and forget smallish details. So if there's something I've skipped over or it looks like I've forgotten about, I would hope you guys won't hesitate to point it out for me. Love y'all. Nick couldn't help but notice the change in Nico when they got back from the lookout. He raised an eyebrow at her with a silent question. She put a finger to her lips, then linked her pinky fingers together, giving him a silent promise she'd tell him later. After dinner, Nick pulled out a deck of cards. I bet Nico hasn't shown you guys what her optimized quirk can do, has she? He tossed the cards to her. You're going to make me show off, aren't you? Nico pulled a few cards out of the pack. My other quirk works better when I'm building things or working on computers, but you guys know I can weaponize mundane things too. Izuku and Bakugo watched as she worked the cards into the rough shape of a throwing star. With all the gear you've made up for the team challenge, I just thought you'd been working with the support class. Izuku thought about all the tricks she had come up with. Do the teachers know you've been doing this? Some of them, but most are all me. When May found out that we could have a tech person help out with gear, she just about lost her mind and declared that she was working with us alone. Nico gave the star one last look over before closing her eyes to focus. When her eyes snapped open, they were a silver color. Now I can make the quality of the cards into something much stronger. She blew onto the star, then threw it across the room to make it stick in the door. So that's what you did in our first fight? Bakugo said as Izuku went to pull the projectile from the door. So how's it work? Not really sure. We didn't know that I had some of Papa's quirk until after he passed. And the worst thing is I can't seem to find anyone with a similar one, so it's all trial by error. She laid out on Love's seat. But I still prefer my beast form, and once I finally grow I'll be every bit as dangerous as the rest of them. Well, I do have an obstacle course set up down at the old training grounds if you two want to see how you fare against one of our fastest young ones. Nick watched the boys as they looked at each other. Yeah, I know said we don't do anything, but I thought this year a race would be a little fun on the last day. I think they're scared of being beaten by an itty-bitty kitty, Nico said, flicking her tail with the last words. I'd understand if you guys don't want to do it, but we'd never who is the fastest. She gave them a Cheshire cat grin, knowing she had pushed at least Bakugo's buttons. Like I'd pass up on a chance to pay you back for kicking my butt? All the attention shifted to Izuku. No way am I going to let you guys have all the fun. Count me in too, he added. Nick let out a roar of laughter. That's the spirit, boys. You're not going to win, but I expect you to give it your all. They stayed up telling Nick about all the fights they had with their teachers over the last few weeks. He offered his advice on the ones they had a harder time with. It wasn't until the clock on the mantel chimed one that they realized it was so late. Izuku and Bakugo said their goodnights and headed upstairs. Waiting until she couldn't hear them anymore, Nico fixed her uncle with a sharp glare as she went over to him. You knew, or you gave him the idea. How dare you interject your nose into my business? She beat her fists against Nick's massive arm. You couldn't just let things take a normal course, could you? Easy, Tiger. Put your claws back before you hurt someone. He put a hand on the top of her head. I didn't say a demon thing to Blondie, so he must have been planning on asking you out on his own, and you gave him an opening. Nick thought it was adorable the way she was acting. So you got a boyfriend now, just don't let the old man know. There'll be hell to pay if he finds out. Yeah, I know. I heard him every time he says that I will not be responsible for finding my own husband. But at the same time he doesn't seem to care what the hell I do as long as I don't make a fool of myself. Nico huffed, going back to her seat. I wouldn't call one date having a boyfriend, but I guess this might count as a second date. God, I don't know anymore. She flopped on her back and crossed her arms over her eyes. I'd call it puppy love, but I think he might actually really like you. Nick patted her foot on his way to the stairs. Don't stay up too much later. You got to show those boys who's the fastest cat around. Night, and you promise not to meddle in things? She asked but never got an answer. Of course he's not going to stay out of this. Maybe I should talk to Auntie and get her to make him back off. Nico moved her arms and stared at the ceiling above her. If it wasn't so late I'd call Achiko and see what her opinion is. I guess I could remember to do it in the morning. Alright you three, rules are as follows. Nick stood in front of them, the massive training course set up behind him. Limited use of quirks, if you can get over the obstacle without do so. Next, no attacking each other. I'm not equipped to be putting anyone back together. And lastly, if I catch anyone trying to take shortcuts, you won't like me. Yeah. Can we just get started? Nico bounced on the ball of her feet. Please tell me you have something awesome for the winner. Not this time, Shorty, but maybe I'll think of something before you guys finish. He smiled. I kind of did put this together last minute. Nico looked at the course end to end. Right, last minute and my tail is extra fluffy. She swished it behind her. Can we get started? Fine, first one to finish and come back here the fastest wins. Nick held up a stopwatch. Ready, set, go. He watched them shoot off for the first wall. Nico took an early lead, shifting into her cat and using her animal speed to get to the wall. Shifting back, she grabbed the rope and started pulling herself up. She was halfway up when Bakugo and Izuku made it. Slow pokes, she called down before getting over the wall. It didn't take them long to catch up. It was like Nick had built each section to test each of their strengths, and in the end it was such a close tie that they agreed that it was a draw. Seems I should have made it harder. You three did an amazing job. He laughed as they glared at them breathing. I think you were trying to prove something. Nico managed to get out. Are you still sore that we almost beat you on Friday? Nick patted her head. Sweetie, if I was mad about that, you wouldn't be standing. Why don't you guys take your time getting back, and I'll go ahead to make up lunch? Nick said as he walked back to the cabin. You think he was punishing us? Izuku asked, pulling himself off of the ground. Nick wouldn't do that, would he? That or he was showing us how to use our quirks together better. She looked over at the course. I bet if we would have gone faster if we had worked together, Uncle Nick might have got us calling it a race, but I think he was trying to teach us something. Whatever, it was still worth it to see you two eat my dust. Bakugo laughed as Nico flipped him off. Come on, don't be like that, I know you enjoyed the view. Izuku snorted a laugh into his hand. That's not the point, Kaken. Nico glared at him, but it was fun. Whatever, I need a shower. Nico started walking off on her own. You two are a huge pain in my butt, she called back as they caught up with her. Once she was all cleaned up, Nico found a sunny patch in the living room and made herself comfortable, and it didn't take long for her to pass out. Bakugo happened to walk past and heard her soft purring. God damn it, she's too cute sometimes. He couldn't help blushing as she stirred a little. Too hot, abs, she mumbled before settling again. You're being creepy, Blondie, Nick said, making the younger man jump. If you're going to kiss her, at least wait until she's awake. He laughed when Bakugo turned on him. I wasn't going to do anything like that. Bakugo went and sat across from Nico. I was just wondering if she always talks in her sleep. Nick nodded. Yeah, so what was the topic? This time? Last pass I made she was talking about somebody being well-toned. No idea. He looked out the window going bright red. I was just asking, there's been a couple times she's done it. I take it as a sign of her being completely relaxed. It means she trusts you. Nick could see right through Bakugo. One might even say she might have deeper feelings than that. He took the chance to meddle while Nico was asleep, but you didn't hear that from me. You're nosing around because you think I'm not awake, you yell at you. Nico grumbled, sitting up. I think I'm going to make myself a lion skin rug if you keep this up, she warned him as Nick barked out a laugh. You can try, runt, but you love me too much. He ruffled her already sticking up hair. You should make sure you're ready to head out tomorrow instead of sleeping. But sleeping's so much more fun, she whined, and I already put my bag together, so there. As much as I don't want to leave, I kind of can't wait to get back to school. You know what, I just realized something. Kirishima grabbed Nico and Bakugo's attention one night in the common area. They had been going over some reading for the class the next day where Kirishima joined them. Why is it sometimes when you shift your clothes don't change with you? I mean, anytime you do it while fighting you have to pick up your uniform once you're done, but when you're here you shift in and out without a problem. Yeah, why is that? Bakugo joined in the inquisition. He had wanted to ask but was waiting until it was just the two of them before asking. Nico rolled her eyes at them. It would be guys to ask first, she muttered, grabbing Bakugo's shirt off of him. I'm borrowing this. Way to ask first. He didn't mind giving it up because he knew it would stall her out for a moment. But what's having my shirt going to do? You'll see. Help me make a little space. She shook her head and pointed to the chair as she slipped on Bakugo's shirt. Now I shouldn't really be explaining this to anyone, but what the hell, it's not like my family will ever find out. So there's a big difference in the shifts. One that I have to focus on and the other is pure instinct. Come at me. Nico left herself open for Kirishima to charge at her. You sure about this? I don't want to hurt you. He looked over at Bakugo, who just watched. Alright, but don't go saying I didn't give you a chance to change your mind. He jogged at her, but just as he was going to make contact, she dropped down to her cat, letting Kirishima get caught up in the shirt. Nico took a few steps before shifting back. That was a focused shift because the spare shirt didn't come with me. If you had been a real threat, none of the clothes would have changed, she explained, brushing a bit of fluff from her breathed leg. Does that satisfy your curiosity? Nico didn't get a chance to turn around before Kirishima grabbed her around the middle. Instead of shifting, she planted her feet and flipped him over her shoulder. Din, you're not only good-looking but strong too. I think I'm in love, he coughed out as Nico looked down at him while Bakugo howled with laughter. You wouldn't be able to handle me. She shook her head, then went to retrieve her book. Not even on your best day could you even get close to trying. Nico caught Bakugo grinning at her, clearly finding her treatment of Kirishima hilarious. They had been more time together over the last few days since coming back from the cabin. It wasn't often one was too far from the other. Way to kick his butt, didn't see that coming. Neither did he, she returned his grin. We still on for this weekend? She had been looking forward to the weekend, and now that it was a less than 24 hours away, she was extra curious of what he had planned. You know it? Bakugo held his hand out. Feel like giving me my shirt back? He watched as Nico debated something before giving back the shirt. So, any hints on what I should expect? She'd been trying to get him to give up anything, but Bakugo had kept tight-lipped. No going to happen, you're just going to have to wait. He loved the little pout she gave him. Wouldn't want something to happen because of a curious kitty. Fine, I can't wait to see what you got planned. She waved to them as she walked away. See you guys in the morning. Bakugo went and helped Kirishima up. Don't tell me you beat me to the punch. He gave Bakugo a sly grin. You could have given me a heads up before I made a fool of myself. You might just get your chance to have Nico turn you down again. Bakugo rubbed the back of his neck. I don't have a FNG clue what we're going to do. I am so screwed. Kirishima clapped his friend on the back. With all the time you spend with her, there has to be something you can think of. If anyone can come up with something on the fly, I'll be you. You trying to mess with me? He wasn't sure of Kirishima's advice. I'll kill you if you're screwing with me. Hey now, no need to be like that. While it says you asked her first, I'm not going to piss off my best bud. Kirishima laughed as they put the furniture back to the way it was. The final bell rang and the students of 2A started to file out. Gata, wait a minute. Aizawa called to Nico before she left. Seems you family wants me to remind you that you have responsibilities, held out a stack of papers. I would also like you to tell them I am not a messenger. They can have this delivered to the dorm. I'm sorry they used you like this. She took the papers. I'll talk to my uncle about doing things like this. Was there anything else? No, just make sure this doesn't happen again. He waved her off, going back to his other work. Everything all right? Izuku asked as Nico joined him and Bakugo in the hall. You like a little shaken. She shook her head, tucking the papers out of sight. Just family stuff. I can put it off for later. I really don't want them ruining this good mood I'm in. Nico looped her arms through each of theirs. I think us making to second place calls for some kind of celebration. I say we go home, change and go out and have a little fun. I think that's a plan, Kaken? Izuku asked as they looked over at Bakugo. Bakugo debated if it was worth it to go with them, then it gave him the idea that he could get some ideas on where he could go with Nico the next day. Alright, could be a good way to end the week. He tried not smiling when Nico let out a little squeal of joy. God, she can really be cute when she wants to be. He watched as she skipped ahead a few steps, then walked backwards. I think we should go to that dessert place that's around the corner. I heard they have a milk chocolate cheesecake, and I've been wanting to go try it. Nico said as she bumped into someone. I'm so sorry I didn't. Her words died as she turned around to see a guy a good foot taller than her with ice blue hair. You should know better than to walk like that, Nicole, he said as she shuffled back a couple steps back. I came by to drop off the latest arrangement with the Todoroki family for you, and I thought it would be nice to see you for a little bit. Something in his gold eyes told Bakugo and Izuku that something was off. It looks like you've had a good day, but I do hope you don't plan on skipping out of important work just because you're away from home. Nico shook her head. Of course not. We were just going to go get something to eat before I went over the papers. It was then she regretted mentioning her plans with her team, because the tall boy's eyes flicked past her. Not going to introduce me to your friends? That's not very nice, Nicole. He pretended to be hurt. I'm starting to think being away from home is affecting your manners. Nico did a half-turn. Nagisa, these are my friends Izuku Midoriya and Katsuki Bakugo. Ah, these are the ones Nicholas was telling grandfather about. Nice to meet you guys in person. Nagisa plastered a smile on, showing off his fong-like teeth. You two make sure you take good care of my little Nicole while she's here. I can't have my third coming home broken. He gave Nico one last look before walking back towards the main gate. He's in butt. Bakugo noted as Nico shoved her bag into Izuku's hands. I'll see you guys back at the dorm, was all she said before becoming a cat and running back into the school. They watched her go for a little while. Any idea what that was about? Izuku asked as Bakugo shrugged. We might just have to wait until she's up to talking, if at all. I get the feeling we might be waiting a while for that. Bakugo took Nico's bag from Izuku and started walking back to the dorm. But you got a point, something's not right and that Nagisa guy's behind it. It was close to midnight when Nico finally went back to the dorm. She hadn't been brave enough to face her friends after what had happened with Nagisa. I'm such a coward, I shouldn't have run away like that. But I just couldn't handle it letting them see me like that. She scolded herself, closing the door as quietly as possible. Hey! Bakugo said as Nico yelped as she turned around. It's late, everything all right? He could tell that something was bugging her. Nico did her best to put on a happy face for him, just peachy. Nagisa just caught me off guard is all. There must have been cracks in her mask because he pinned her to the door, hands on either side of her head. Don't lie, not to me, he growled. I know something isn't right. You were all smiles and sunshine until you saw that a-hole. Nico let the fake smile drop. Her ears and tail went along with it. He scares me like deep down terror. I wasn't prepared to see him, so I panicked and ran when he left, she admitted, looking down a little. I can't stand the fact that you guys saw me like this, running away with my tail firmly between my legs. It's all right to be scared, he tried to comfort her, and you don't have to worry about looking scared in front of me. I'll protect you when you can't do it for yourself. Nico looked up at him, tears building in the corners of her golden eyes. You don't need to do that, I'm able to look out of myself. I just have to get over my fears. She wiped the corners of her eyes. Did you wait up for me? Not by myself. Deku was worried when you didn't come back for dinner. Eventually Kiri got worried about you too and they're now passed out on the couch. Bakugo didn't move, he wanted to make sure that she really was all right. You do know you're safe here, none of us would let anything happen. Nico managed to smile a little, this coming from the guy that got kidnapped by the League of Villains. That makes me feel so much better. She stood on her toes and gave him a light kiss on the forehead. Thank you for looking out for me. Yeah well, you're one of us now, get used to it. Bakugo finally straightened up, letting her go. Maybe you should have something to eat before getting some sleep. I got something awesome planned for tomorrow. He could see the curiosity come back to her eyes, which made him relax a little more. I'm looking forward to it, Nico said as she went to the kitchen. Should we wake them? She pointed to Izuku and Kirishima who were leaning against each other. Nah, leave them. It'll teach them to pass out like idiots. Bakugo leaned against the counter as she rummaged through the fridge. I've been tempted to shift them so they're cuddling. And you haven't? Why? Nico giggled. I'd love to see them wake up and being completely confused. She gave up on finding something to eat and just went to get a cup of instant ramen. I could help you while I wait for this. I like the way you think, he gave her a wicked grin. This is going to be good. By the time everyone came down the next morning, Bakugo and Nico had somehow shifted Izuku and Kirishima without waking them. They had laid Kirishima on his back and put Izuku on top of him with his arm around the smaller boy. Nico waved Ochako over. I think Izuku's comfy. She tried her best not to laugh. I don't want to wake them. They look so cute. Ochako could see that Nico was up to something, but she let the cat girl have her fun. How do we get them up? Just as they went to give Izuku a little shake, he started to wake on his own. Morning guys, he started to sit up and rubbing his eyes. What time is it? Nico looked at her watch. A little past noon. No one had the heart to wake you guys. She smiled as Izuku realized that he was laying on someone. The girls watched as he froze and looked up to see he was laying with Kirishima. This isn't what it looks like, I swear. Izuku stammered out as he shot away from the couch. Izuku's sudden movements managed to pull Kirishima from his sleep. What's going on? He mumbled as looked from Nico, who was dying of laughter, to a bright red Izuku. Did I miss something good? Looks like it. Bakugo answered, grabbing Nico's attention. You ready to head out? Nico nodded as she caught her breath. I just need to grab my jacket, I'll be right back. She jogged off upstairs. She seems to be all right. Any idea what happened yesterday? Izuku asked Bakugo once Nico was out of sight. The blonde boy shrugged. Family sheet if I had to guess. But I get the feeling that if she wanted to talk about it she wouldn't have taken off yesterday. He stuffed his hands into his pockets. Don't push the matter, he warned them. He didn't want to see Nico upset by a careless question. Are you making sure Aizu doesn't break your best friend's heart? How cute of you. Nico grinned as she rejoined them. But I don't think he could ever do that, he's too nice. She gave the very confused Kirishima a mischievous smile before linking arms with Bakugo. They do make a sweet couple, she said, causing Izuku to start protesting as they left. Bakugo guided Nico to the dessert place she had been talking about before running off the day before. I figured since we couldn't make it yesterday, you'd still like to come. He watched the excitement play over her face. You certainly do know me well. Nico smiled. Thank you. She bounced up on her toes and kissed his cheek. Yeah, well, I just figured it would make up for the JRK ruining your day yesterday. He blushed a little. But I don't want you thinking about that. Not today. He didn't want her to think of anything that would bring down her mood. I can do that. Why don't you tell me about your family? I mean, it's only fair since you know so much about mine already. Nico said as they grabbed a table. Your parents must be interesting. Bakugo scoffed. I think you'd get along well with the old hag. He smiled when she raised an eyebrow. Maybe next time I go home for a visit, you could tag along if you wanted. I'd love that, but you sure bringing a girl home to meet your mother is a good idea? Her tail rested on her shoulder, the tip flicking at him. Someone would get the idea that you'd be getting serious just after a second date. Second? By my count you're one short, he corrected her. My birthday, the lookout, and then there's today. Bakugo counted out as Nico shook her head. No, this is the second. The lookout doesn't count, my uncle set that up. She waved him off. Neither of us came up with the idea, so it shouldn't count. I say it shouldn't matter who sets it up, it was just the two of us. Bakugo argued back. Really, then if you're counting it that way, we're sitting a 4. The training we did when Aizu went home for the weekend, she rested her chin on her interlocked fingers. So do you really want to keep arguing with me? He glared at her a little. No, it's going to take more time than we have. Nobody has that much time. He liked having someone to argue with. So you really want to meet my folks? Why wouldn't I? She quickly gave their server her order. I like spending time with you and I really would like to meet them. She blushed, feeling a little awkward. Well then I guess I should see about going home sometime soon. He was looking forward to Nico meeting his parents now. They spent the next couple hours just talk about anything and everything, and when the wait staff finally shooed them out, they just wandered around as they found their way into the park. Thank you for today, I really needed it. She rested her head on his shoulder as they took a little break. I left the family estate so I didn't have to deal with family business, but it seems to follow me no matter what. Bakugo took his arm and draped it over her shoulders so Nico could get closer. Why not just leave if it's that much of a pain? I would if it was that easy. Since I hold such a high rank within the family I can't just up and leave, she sighed. I'd lose my license if I left now, which I don't mind. It just means I'd have to do all the paperwork again. I'm sorry, you're a pro hero? Bakugo asked, looking down at her in shock. Why the hell are you going to UA then? I'm at UA because I want to have a normalish life. It's a Gata tradition that we get our full license at 16. I know it sounds like an odd tradition, but that's just how it is. Nico explained, but you can't tell the others, no one is supposed to find out. That was one of the conditions Nizu put in place when I enrolled. I'll take it to the grave. Bakugo vowed, I just like the idea of my girlfriend being a pro-hero. I guess you've seen some pretty intense battles? Nope, I've been sidelined because my cat is so small. To be honest, I don't mind, it gives me time to work on my other quirk, she admitted, and that's another condition that was put in place. I am to refrain from doing anything that isn't part of the provisional license unless it's an extreme emergency. That has to SEK, why let you keep your license at all then? He started to play with the ends of her hair. It doesn't seem very fair to put restrictions on you like that. Nico smiled, it was nice to have someone set off for her for a change. It's fine, I happily agreed to them. Less pressure on me so I can enjoy my time in school. She curled into him a little more. I left home so I could be like others my own age, and I can't do that if I have full status. I still say it isn't fair, but if you're fine with it then it's alright. Nico laughed as Bakugo let the subject drop. Yeah, you might think it's funny, it's the truth. I find your dislike of my restriction cute, and I like that you called me your girlfriend. She looked up at him, her cheeks a little pink. It makes me feel special. Yeah, well, you better get used to it, he said as a pair of elderly women passed by, smiling and whispering about young love. Their comments made the pair blush deeper. Maybe we should head back now. Bakugo got up and offered Nico his hand. As long as we take the long way there. I'm in no rush to get back. She gladly took the offered hand and let him pull her up to her feet. For most of the next day Nico kept to her room, going over the papers left by Nagisa. If I understand this right, they want the families to work together more closely. But how is that going to work? She flipped through the pages trying to see what it was she missed. And that rat, he didn't give me all the pages. She slammed her hand down on the table and went for her phone. Hey house cat, you going to come out of here sometime today? Bakugo asked as he opened the door when she didn't answer him. I should have known he would do that. I guess I have to come get them, don't I? He caught her in the middle of a conversation. Yeah, sorry Ron, I'd bring them to you but we're extra busy here getting ready for the first round of negotiations. Nick said as Nico groaned. It's not super important what you're missing, it can wait for tomorrow when I can swing by. Don't worry about it today. It's nice outside, why not go and enjoy the day? No, I need to show Nagisa that he can't mess with me and get away with it, she sighed. It's going to take all day to get there and back and I was looking forward to spending my day with Katsuki. Bakugo didn't say anything, he wanted to hear what Nick had to say. Oh, first name, seems Blondie gets special treatment now. He could hear the smirk in Nick's voice. I take it your date yesterday went well. Nico smiled a little. It did, and he even asked me to meet his parents. She turned to sit on the bed and caught sight of Bakugo in the corner of her eye. Well now, should I be expecting him to come talk? Nico cut him off by end the call. Aw, come on, he was getting to the good part. Bakugo laughed as she turned beet red. You didn't have to end the call on my account. I just came by to see if you wanted to go for a walk or something. Just how much of that did you hear? She was starting to think that she needed to put bells on her teammates so they couldn't sneak up on her. I'm not telling, I think letting freak out would be so much more fun, he smirked, leaning on the doorframe. So you going to be going home today? I would have thought that you could get any info you wanted from Icy Hot, he said as her ears perked up a little. Nico slammed her against her forehead. I'm such an idiot. Of course I could get the missing information from him. She jumped up, grabbed the papers and gave Bakugo a quick kiss. Thanks for the idea. It shouldn't take long, then we can go do whatever we want. She skipped past him and down to the common area. Hey, wait for me, he called after her. You can't just run off like that. It didn't take him long to catch up with her. Sorry, but I really need to make sure I understand what's going on. She bounced to a stop by Shoto. Hey Todoroki, I was wondering if I could pick your brain on something, she asked, grabbing a seat across from him. My cousin dropped these off for me, but I don't have all the pages. I was hoping you'd be able to fill me in. Shoto turned the stack so he could see what she was talking about. I didn't know you were so high up in your family to know about this. He looked at her. Basically, my father wants to have your family be some kind of internal police for the hero organizations. Of course, because we don't involve ourselves with their politics. She narrowed her eyes. I don't like it. I mean, having a neutral third party is fine and everything, but I get the feeling there is more to it than that. She played with the end of her tail as she thought. I think that as well, but there is little that we can do. Shoto echoed her thoughts. We are still just high school students, despite everything we've proven we can do. Yeah, thanks for the help, Todoroki. Sorry for bugging you. She took her papers and rolled them up. It was a big help talking with you. Not a problem, anytime you have more questions about this proposal I'd be happy to answer them for you. Shoto said as Bakugo lifted Nico over his shoulder. Katsuki, what the hell? She braced her hands against his back. That was a little rude, don't you think? She wasn't sure why all of a sudden she was being carried off, but she wanted to know why. I didn't like the way he was looking at you. Bakugo muttered, it bugged me, him being nice to you like that. Nico managed to wiggle free. You hothead, he was being nice to me to make sure that this deal between the families goes smoothly. She punched his arm and glared at him. No need to get territorial when it comes to anyone else. You make it sound like I was jealous or something. He backed her up into a wall. It's bad enough that I got to share time with Deku, so what if I don't want anyone else looking at you that way? Really? I'd say you're more than jealous at this point. She planted her hand on his chest. I will give you one warning. If you think getting possessive over me will impress anyone, you are sorely mistaken. I will talk with anyone, and if you don't like it, you're going to have to find a way to deal with it. She stared him down. Do I make myself clear? I just want you all to myself, but if I have to share your time with the others, then I'll just have to make sure that I get at least one day just for us. He tried to move closer, but Nico held her arm firm. I'm going to hold you to that. She moved her arm with a small smile. But you won't like me if you step out of line. Oh yeah, just what will the itty-bitty kitty going to do to big bad me? He taunted her, tilting her chin. Look at you, going all red. The mighty warrior blushing like a schoolgirl, makes me love you that much more. He leaned in to kiss her but was interrupted by Izuku. Nico, you might want to come out here. Your aunt just showed up and she's not very pleased with something, he stammered, and backing up as Bakugo glared at him. I'll be right there. Just try to keep your answers short and to the point. Nico said as Izuku ran off back the way he came. We should go. Auntie Nina really doesn't like to be kept waiting. We're not finished here, but we can pick it up later. He pulled away from her, but she didn't move away from the wall. You need that wall for something? Promise you won't laugh if I show you? Nico asked as he nodded. Whenever I get excited or scared, my tail likes to puff out. She left her tail out from between her and the wall. It was almost double in size. I think that will be useful to know, he noted as they made their way to the common area. I'm going to love seeing just what makes your fur stand on end. Nicole Dianagata, I do not have all day. Get you but out here right now. Nina snapped as they came into sight. My idiot brother was worried that something had happened to you by the way you ended your call. Clearly he was so very wrong. She noted the state of Nico's tail. Nico flinched at the use of her full name. Yes ma'am, sorry ma'am. I didn't mean to hang up on him, but I came up with a way to get the information I was missing. Clearly not pleased with that answer. I guess you won't need this complete report then. Nina, help out the file, but maybe you should take it anyways as you have all about killed your copy. Both Nico and Bakugo looked at the now extremely crushed report. Thank you, Auntie. Is there anything else you need? Nico took the folder from her aunt. Not right now. You're just luck I was close by. She gave Bakugo one last glare. I will be calling you later to discuss certain subjects with you, and you best be alone when I do. Yes, ma'am. Nico said as Nina shifted into a cheetah and trotted for the open door. Sweet hell, she's going to pin me to the wall. Nico went to a chair as her legs gave out from under her. Bakugo went over and sat on the arm of her chair. Let me guess, this is going to have something to do with me, she nodded. Can your aunt really be that scary? Like you wouldn't believe. Nico leaned onto him. I'm afraid that she isn't too happy with me about you. She could sense his next question and answered before he could ask. I'm kind of on a short leash while I'm away from the estate. I wasn't supposed to fall in love, but it's kind of hard with you around. How is it you haven't lost your mind with all these rules? Bakugo ran a hand over her hair. I guess this is because of you, mother. They don't want a repeat of what happened. Your guess is as good as mine. The old man has already told me that he will be taking care of arranging a marriage for me, but he at the same time let me come here, so I can't tell what he's thinking. She leaned into his hand. Certain things just can't be stopped, so I say to hell with them if they don't like it. That's the spirit, babe. Now how about you get changed and then we go see about doing something? He smiled as she whined when he took his hand back. Might as well enjoy your last day to the fullest before Nina rips you a new one. Alright, I mean as long as I'm back to be yell at then what's the harm? Nico had set her laptop up so when Nina called that night her aunt could give her the glares along with the verbal lashing. Nicole Diana, are you out of your mind? Nina demanded as soon as Nico answered the call. I allowed Nicholas to take those boys with you to the cabin because he said he wanted to work on your team building, and then I find you coming out of God knows where with your tail looking like that. Just what kinds of things did my idiot brother allow to go on while you were away? Nothing like that, Auntie, and my tail was puffed out because he managed to sneak up on me. Nico explained while not giving the whole truth. Uncle Nick had us running one of his gauntlets, so we didn't have time to do much else. Nina narrowed her eyes. I still don't like that you're getting close to that Bakugo boy, not with the spring seal coming up. That and you know what your grandfather has said on the matter. Auntie, I love you but you're being overprotective. Nico sighed. Please understand that I need to be able to handle the cycles on my own. I'm going to have to learn how to deal with them while being around guys. It wasn't the first time they had this conversation since she had moved into the dorms. It's going to be rough for the first few times, but I will be able to get through it because I have friends who care. Nina still wasn't sold on the fact Nico was ready for this on her own. I want you to call if it gets to be too much and I'll be there in a heartbeat. Your uncle died laughing when I told him what had happened and asked me to pass a message along to the young man. He is to come see Nicholas if wants to steal you away first. Nico tried fighting back a smile when Nina said that. Oh no you don't, I see what's going on here. No, I forbid it, I am not going through this again. I will not get caught up in the middle of this mess because your uncle wants to defy our father. I will become a teacher at that school if that's what it takes to keep you from starting a war within the family. Nina snapped. I will not allow either one of you to do something stupid that will cause a scene. Auntie, you're the only one making a scene. I know for a fact you like your job with the family so you wouldn't leave it just to babysit me. You know how Uncle Nick likes to stir the pot and send you into a tizzy. Nico looked down at the time on her screen. It's getting late and I have class in the morning. I'll call you every night if it makes you feel better. Good night. I trust you to know your boundaries. Nina relented a little. Just be careful, the CYCL has already started making its way through the estate. You won't have much longer before it takes you to. Sweet dreams, Kit, and do call if you need me for anything. Nina hung up and Nico closed her computer. Holy hell, Nina has gone off the deep end. Nico thought as she flopped back onto the floor with a deep sigh, but I guess she doesn't want a repeat of Mama and Papa, and I understand that it would open old wounds, but she doesn't need to lose her mind over it. She rolled over as someone knocked on the door. Finally someone with manners. Come on in, she called out as Ochako popped in. And what can I do for my favorite anti-gravity hero today? The guys were worried that your aunt would pull you from school, and I don't mean just Deku and Bakugo. Most of them were waiting for you to come back down to see what happened, she explained, stepping over Nico to sit on the bed. They sent me up here to see who it was going. Auntie Nina can be pretty scary when she wants to be, but she's a fluffy kitten once you get on her good side. Nico pushed herself up. I take you hear what she said about my C. It's written all over your face. I didn't to listen in, but why is she so worried about you? Nico loved that her friend as concerned for her. It's not like you're living in a house with all guys. My CYCL is a lot different than yours. While you go through a monthly CYCL where you get cramps and wish every male on the face of the earth dead, I get them once every 4 months. And trust me, it is so very far from a blessing. They are so intense that I actually run a fever while it feels like my body is being ripped apart. Nico watched Ochako flinch a little. Yeah, I can thank my cat for that. Why do you think cats make so much noise when they are in heat? I'd kill to have a CYCL like yours. I guess every quirk has its drawbacks, but that one has to be the worst. Are you going to be able to come to class? Ochako was really worried for her friend now. Probably not the first couple times, but once I get a handle on how to control the pain I'll be fine. I got my fridge stocked with cold packs so I'm good to go. The only thing Auntie Nina is concerned with is my sense of smell. While it's sharp right now, it's going to get sharper and I'll be able to tell if any of the guys come on this side of the hall. She's worried that you being in a state of pain you won't be able to fight any guy off if they try something. Ochako stated as Nico tapped her nose. Right on the money, so I'm going to be couldin' on you and the other girls to help keep them away. I don't know what'll happen if I catch their scents. Nico said as Achiko gave her a thumbs up. You can count on us. You can message me if you need help, and I'll be right here. Achiko's smile then leapt onto Nico, crushing her in a hug. Now I know that I'm glad I came here. I wouldn't have expected to make such great friends. They landed on the floor giggling. Nico couldn't think of a better place she could ever want to be. The next couple weeks went smoothly. Nico knew that it was only a matter of time before everything went sideways on her. At the beginning of the week it started with a prickling in her skin and a dull ache that came from every muscle. As the week progressed it got to the point where she became familiar with the sense of each of her friends. By Friday it had hit the point where she couldn't be in the same room as the guys without getting a little dizzy. All it took was a tap on Achiko's shoulder and she vanished back to her room to get herself together. She was grateful that the fever had waited until the weekend to finally spike. Waking up and feeling like she was on fire, she knew it was time to tag her friends in for guard duty. Crawling over to her phone, Nico sent Achiko a message that contained 3 letters, and within minutes her friend had helped her back into bed and was covering the overheating cat girl with cold packs from the fridge. Thanks so much. I don't know what I would have done without you. Nico breathed as Achiko placed a pack on her forehead. What are friends for? Anything you need before I go fill the others in on what's going on, she offered as Nico pointed to her phone. I need you to let Aizu and Katsuki know they really need to keep their distance. Just say I'm sick and I don't want them to get it. Nico didn't want them to worry but didn't want them to come to see her. I thought it was bad when it was just my uncle in the house. It was a sensory overload just sitting around having dinner last night. In class what just as bad? Don't worry, we'll do our best to keep the guys away. Achiko patted Nico's hand gently before going out into the hall to brief the other girls. How is she? Momo asked once Achiko closed the door. I know you two said it was going to get bad, but shouldn't we take her to recovery, girl? That would only make it worse. Nico said she just needs to ride it out. Achiko said as the sound of footsteps caught the group's attention. They turned to see a couple of the guys following Bakugo down the hall. What the hell? If she's sick then we should take her to a doctor, he snapped as Momo and Achiko stepped into his path. It's just a cold, nothing rest won't fix. Achiko stood with her arms out. Nico said that she didn't want to get you sick, that's why she asked me to look after her. Why don't you and everyone else go back downstairs and let poor Nico rest? She'll come down once she's feeling better. Momo added, noticing Bakugo wasn't backing down. It became a battle of wills until Achiko tapped Bakugo on the shoulder, making him float. Deku, get him out of here. The smaller boy grabbed Bakugo's breathe leg and pulled him back downstairs. I won't be able to keep him at bay like that all day, but we did buy a little time. She put her fingers together, releasing her quirk and Bakugo in the process. So it's going to be keeping Bakugo busy more than anyone else. Mina leaned against the windowsill. Maybe we can get a couple of the guys to pitch in. He'd know something was off if it was only us playing defense. He listens to Kirishima to some extent, and Denki too. Maybe we can get those two to get him out of here for most of the day. Kyoka suggested. Maybe we could even convince Bakugo to pick up something for her to eat. If anyone would know her it would be him. All right ladies, this is what's going to happen. Momo took charge. Kyoka, you go let Denki know our plan and get him to pass it along Kirishima. Toru, I'd like you to watch the stairs and trip up Bakugo if he tries to come this way. The pair went down and spread their plan through the ones they knew would help. Leaves the 4 of us guard the door and look after her. If we work in pairs it will spread our time efficiently. If it's all the same, I think Nico only wants one of us coming and going. Achiko chimed in. Since the guys think I'm the only one that's been in contact with her, I can do most of the work. Alright, if it will put Nico at ease. Momo nodded. Just tag one of us in if you need a hand. You got it, now go see if the others need a hand. I got Nico covered. Achiko turned back to Nico's room and went in. While the girls plotted, Bakugo was nursing the lump on his head from Achiko. Releasing her quirk. What is the effed problem? I just wanted to make sure my girlfriend was alright. He pressed ice pack against the side of his head, watching as Kyoka whispered something to Denki and the pair of them head in Kirishima's direction. What are they up to? How's you head? Izuku asked as he joined Bakugo on the couch. Like I hit it off the stairs, he snapped. Think you make a distraction for me? As much as it killed him, Bakugo needed Izuku's help getting past the girls. I gotta know it's just a cold. The smaller boy could see how much it meant to his friend. Alright, but just this once? Izuku went over and disappeared up the stairs. A few minutes later Bakugo got a message on his phone saying he had a 10-minute opening. Not wasting a moment, he flew up the stairs. We've gotten her fever down for now. Achiko stood in front of Nico's door. I'm going to give you 5 minutes. I don't know how much she'll be able to take. Fine, whatever, just let me in. Bakugo growled as Achiko took a sidestep out of his way. When Bakugo went into the room, her could feel the temperature change. It was colder than the rest of the dorm. Katsuki, I thought I told you to stay away, Nico said as stiffly pushed herself up. Did you bully Achiko? Most of the cold pack dropped to the bed around her. Don't you worry about her, house cat. You look like hell. He went have sat on the edge of the bed. If you're sick, it shouldn't be so cold in here. You'll just make it worse. She gave him a weak smile. I need it like this. Don't worry about me so much. I'll be fine in a day or two. Nico wanted to hug him, but she wasn't sure if she wanted to get any closer. I know you tried bullying Yue in here earlier. It wasn't very nice. He gave her a confused look. We were at the end of the hall. There is no way you should have hurt us. Nico tapped her nose. I could smell you. When that answer didn't clear anything up, she continued to explain. Everyone has a unique scent to them. It's kind of like a fingerprint. For example, Achiko smells like lilies while Ida's reminds me of the wind-up at the cabin. And just what do I smell like? Bakugo asked, sliding closer. Should I be jealous that you used the speed freak instead of me? Nico rolled her eyes at him. Normally people don't want to know what they smell like, but I guess since you're not normal I should have expected it. Gunpowder. It reminds me for going to watch fireworks with my parents. As crazy as it sounds, it's the most soothing scent in the house. Just how does that work? He asked, but she just shrugged. Well, if it's going to help here, he pulled his shirt off and tossed it at her. You can give it back when you're feeling better. Like that's going to happen. Nico managed to laugh a little before the pain got to her. I should try to get a little sleep. You don't have to worry about me. I'll be back to normal in no time. She could see Bakugo was still very worried about her. How about you bring me up dinner later if it makes you less worried? Like there was anything stopping me before. He got up and kissed the top of her head, making Nico purr loudly. I'll be back later then. Take it easy. I will as long as you come back and see me later. She smiled as Bakugo left. Once Nico knew she was alone, she spread his shirt out on the bed and shifted to her cat form and curled up into a ball, purring loudly the entire time. I'm going to have to ask Auntie why I start feeling better when he's around. She thought, drifting off into a deep sleep. Spending most of the day in Bakugo's shirt, Nico loved that it was like he was there with her, making her CYCL more tolerable. She had just made herself comfortable again when a knock came at the door. You awake, house cat? Bakugo asked as came in with something for her to eat. She stuck her head out of the sleeve enough to watch him but not have him notice her just yet. You even in here? He looked around and noticed the red tail poking out the bottom of the shirt. Clearly someone is taking living my shirt a little far. Come on out and eat, I got you something special for after. That caught her attention. Slipping out of the shirt, Nico jumped down and into Bakugo's lap before shifting. Yeah, I like this better. She nuzzled into his neck. I'm still keeping the shirt, but nothing can compare to the real thing. Why don't you think about eating instead of sniffing me? He tried to turn her, but she let out a sound that was a mix of a growl and a whine. Don't you give me attitude, you need to eat? I just missed you all day. Let me enjoy this a little more first, she grumbled. It had felt like a lifetime since she was this close to him. You've lost your mind. I was here this morning. He wasn't about to admit it, but he had missed having her close. Will you eat already? It's going to go cold, he said as Nico made herself comfortable with her dinner. So what did you guys get up to? Achiko told me that Denki and Kiri dragged you out. She slowly picked at her food. From what I understand, they all but tied you up to get you out of the house. Yeah, well, I didn't want to go far if you needed me. He started scratching behind one of her ears. But I guess you had the girls to keep you company, so at least you weren't lonely. Nico leaned back a little into his hand, lightly purring. I slept most of the day. While I did like having the other girls keep me company, it wasn't you. Bakugo looked down at her. You're not really sick, are you? He knew he was right when her tail stopped moving. I might have overheard a couple of the others. Why didn't you just say what was going on to begin with? I don't like anyone seeing me when I'm at my weakest. Though I for some reason don't feel like I normally do when this time comes around. She admitted, I have a theory that it has something to do with you. I plan on calling my aunt later to see if she can fill me in on why that might be. Nico looked at the plate he had brought her. Did you put enough on here? I might not have eaten much today, but there's enough here for two. I may have grabbed enough for both of us, but I didn't count on you sitting on me. Bakugo said as she looked up at him and just smiled. Being cute with me now, nice try. Just eat what you can and I'll take care of the rest. He went back to scratching her ear while she ate, both falling into a content silence other than the low rumble of Nico's purring. The morning light came pouring, making Nico stir a little. Looks like I survived the spring CYCL without a call home, she thought, stretching her arms out as she made her way to freshen up. I still have to call Auntie to find out why Katsuki's scent helped, but that can wait for later. It didn't take her long to realize that she wasn't in her own room, starting with the fact that none of her face products were in the washroom. Looking around, Nico wasn't sure where she was. Oh boy, I'm not in Kansas anymore. What the hell is going on? She closed her eyes and tried to remember what happened after Bakugo left her the night before, but it was a blank. All her instincts told her she wasn't in any kind of danger and that she was still in the dorm. A knocking on the washroom door sent her into a panic, and Nico went into defense mode as she opened the door. Oi, what the hell has gotten into you? Bakugo demanded as she swiped at him. Clearly you're back to being yourself, somewhat. Relaxing a little, Nico dropped her hands. What the actual F-? Care to tell me what happened and how I ended up here? She turned her panic into anger. Why you said with me? You're the one who snuck in here, he snapped back at her. You nearly took Deku's face when he got too close to you. I'm sad because I don't know how I ended up in your room. The last thing I can really remember is you saying good night before I turned in for the night. Nico could see her confusion mirrored on Bakugo's face. I'm going to get changed and then we can figure out what the hell happened last night. As she pushed past, Bakugo caught her by the arm. You really don't remember anything? He asked as she shook her head. I wish I could, but it's a giant blank. There's only one other time that I have a gap in my memory like this, but I don't think you put catnip on my pillow. She pulled her arm free. Just what did I do? You showed up at my window like some crazy demon stalker. I called Deku to get a little backup in case you went all psycho. As it turned out, he was the one that needed the help. You took a couple of swipes at him and you even managed to land a few scratches. Then you turned into your cat form and passed out cold? Bakugo said as Nico looked at her nails and there was a little blood under them. Don't worry, you didn't hurt him too bad. I did what? She looked at him, scared of what kind of damage she had done. Bakugo took Nico's hands in his, just a few little nicks on his arms, nothing too bad. He tried to put her at ease, but it didn't look to him like it was working. I managed to get between the two of you before you could take his head off. He turned his face and Nico saw 4 faint lines on his cheek. I got you too, let me see. Nico went to reach for his cheek but he wouldn't let go of her hands. Don't go acting like it's nothing, that has to hurt. Bakugo leaned forward and put his forehead on hers. I don't even notice them, I'm just happy to see you're back to normal. I think Deku called your aunt already so she should be showing up. He didn't get to finish his thought because a loud growl cut him off. Nicole, I thought I told you to call if anything happened. Nina shouted from the hall. I should have been woken up this morning to a panicked voicemail from the green-haired boy. Slipping away from Bakugo, Nico went to confront her aunt. I was going to call you later today, she snapped, crossing her arms in front of her. There's no need to be a beach. Kit, I will let that one slide, but I am warning you not to take an attitude with me. Nina didn't back down from Nico's challenging presence. I am still you, aunt, and I am not going to put up with it, she warned Nico as the teen growled. You come into my territory and start trying to pull rank with me. Nico dropped her arms and started to circle Nina. I thought you knew better than that, she continued to growl as Nina moved along with Nico, not letting her get behind her. What did you do to her? Nina snapped at Bakugo. I need to know everything that happened in the last week. Nico took a swipe at Nina when she thought her aunt wasn't paying attention, but the older woman stepped out of the way. I wouldn't take your eyes off of me if I were you. I've gotten faster since the last time we fought. Nico snarled, taking another swipe. You may be a cheetah on the inside, but I've been keeping up with my training. Bakugo caught sight of Nico's eyes. They were darker and more animal-like than usual. Nothing out of the ordinary happened until last night, when she started acting like this. Bakugo answered, watching them dance around each other. She says she doesn't remember what happened. Fine then, go over with me what happened yesterday. Start from the morning and walked me through everything. Nina was just barely able to keep herself over of Nico's reach. She was a little proud that Nico had managed to keep her on her toes, but now wasn't the time for such thoughts. I went to see her after I got a message telling me to stay away, got dragged away, but then Uraraka let me see her for like 5 minutes when I left her my shirt. Bakugo talked fast because it looked like Nico was getting the upper hand. She said that the way I smelled was soothing. Was that the last time you saw her? Nina was starting to get an idea of what was going on. Boy, this is important. Did you spend any more time with Nicole after you left your shirt? Yeah, I brought up dinner and we ate together. He watched as Nina grabbed Nico's arm and held it against her back. She sat in my lap the entire time. Alright, so it's your fault then? Nina tripped Nico and slammed her into the floor, pinning her with a knee in the middle of her back. I had a feeling this would happen, I just didn't think it would be the first time. Unfortunately, you triggered the animal within without realizing it. We're going to need to get her outside. She hit a couple of pressure points in the back of Nico's neck, making the thrashing girl go still. And you will be keeping your distance for the rest of the day. There will be no negotiation about it. I should have made her come home. Nina picked up the sleeping girl and left Bakugo wondering what he had done. An hour later, Nico finally woke up. "Oi, why does it feel like I got run over by a train?" She rubbed the side of her face that had made contact with the floor. "I wouldn't say train," Nina said from beside her, "but I'm just as fast." Feeling any better? She watched Nico sit up stiffly. "Auntie? When did you get here?" Nico asked as she looked around, seeing that they were in the little courtyard of the dorm. "And when did I get outside?" "It happened again, didn't it?" Nina nodded. "You heard me and it sent you off the deep end." "Unfortunately, I didn't know the full extent of what was going on." She smoothed out some of Nico's hair. "I had to put you in your place, but that boy's scent woke a dormant part of your cat and sent it into overdrive." "You have got to be kidding me," Nico groaned, burying her face into Nina's shoulder. "Just kill me now, and here I thought I just got lucky and nothing went wrong." Nina struggled not to laugh at Nico. "I know, Kit, but it was on the last day, so you did have a little luck. Just imagine how this could have gone if this had happened in the middle of the week. I don't want to think about that. Oh God, I hurt Aizu while in a frenzy. Have you seen him? How bad is it?" She started to panic, hoping that she didn't hurt anyone else. Nina put her arm around Nico. "Don't worry, Kit, he's fine." If it hadn't been for the blonde idiot jumping in when he did, it would have been worse than a few shallow cuts. Nico leaned into her aunt. "This mess is my fault. I should have made you come home until this was over. On top of that, I might have to pay to fix the floor. I might have put you down a little harder than necessary." "Well, that would explain why my head is killing me." Nico laughed a little. "Thank you for coming when you did. I could have turned into a total psychopath," she said as someone tapped on the glass door. The cats looked over to see Izuku waving. Nico flattened her ears down on her head, feeling guilty about all the bandages on his arms. "Kit, it wasn't your fault. You weren't in control of yourself. It doesn't look like he blames you." Nina tried to make her feel better, but when she saw that words weren't working, she waved Izuku over. "Good to see you're finally awake." He watched as Nico slid behind Nina. "Are you feeling better?" Nico nodded from over Nina's shoulder, retreating farther behind her aunt. "Nicole, don't be a scaredy cat. You are not a child. I will not have you hiding like one." Nina scolded her. "I'm going to see if your room has been properly aired out. We don't need you going into another frenzy." Nina got up and let Nico with Izuku. "Auntie," Nico whimpered as she helplessly watched her leave. "I'm so sorry I hurt you." She looked down at the ground, trying not to cry. "You weren't yourself." Nina explained what happened to you. Izuku said as he went to sit next to her. "Did Kaken tell you what happened last night?" "Not really. He called me a crazy demon stalker, so I take it I was totally bats hit." She shifted a little to keep her distance from him. "Care to add the story?" "It was almost 10 when I got a message from Kaken that you were acting oddly." Izuku pulled up the message for her. "By the time I got up there, you were perched on the balcony railing just watching. I have to admit it was really creepy how still you were sitting. And your eyes were so dark and more cat-like than normal. My cat was hunting. This is so much worse than the time Nagisa and Nori coated my pillow with catnip. Nico curled up on herself. I could have done some serious damage if it hadn't been for Katsuki. I'm dangerous, I shouldn't be living here. She dropped her head onto her knees and sniffled back her tears. No one has complete control over their quirk right away. He moved close and pulled her into a side hug. And while we're here, each of us is learning how to get a better control over our powers. What better place to find out flaws than is a place that has so many eyes? Just think of what could have happened if you lost your mind somewhere else. Izuku realized that he wasn't helping when she curled in tighter, her tail wrapped across her legs. I leave you for 10 minutes and you make her cry, Nina said as she came back to a stack of clothes. Kit, you are going for a bath and then we're going out. Clearly being around here right now isn't helping. Nico got to her feet and took the pile. Yes, ma'am, and she dashed inside without another word. Nina turned to Izuku. Please keep trying to get through to her, you and the other one. While I won't say this to him, but the pair of you are good for her. I haven't seen her so happy in a long time, she said as Izuku got to his feet. I don't want this incident to set her back, not with how far she's come. We won't let you down. If it comes to it, we can just get Denki to go full stupid and that should get a small laugh at the least. Izuku promised, but you might want to tell Kaken that he isn't in the doghouse anymore. He looks so heartbroken. He pointed up to the window overlooking the courtyard where they saw Bakugo watching them. I'll let him suffer a little longer. While I appreciate what you two did last night, it doesn't mean I accept him like my brother does. She turned back to Izuku. I will bring Nicole back later. Hopefully I can get her to stop feeling bad about what happened. Why don't you try to come back for dinner? It's Kaken's turn to cook and I know he'd love it if you joined us. Nina narrowed her eyes at the boy. It wouldn't hurt to give him a small chance. We'll see, but for now I'll let him stew. She turned, giving Bakugo one last look before going to check on Nico. Nina took Nico for a wander around the mall. Is there anything for school while we're here? She tried to get Nico to say something. Or is there anything you want to get? I know I scold Nicholas for spoiling you, but I think it's my turn. I'm fine. I came and stocked up on everything last week with Katsuki. Nico quietly answered. You don't have to do this if there's somewhere else you need to be. I'll be fine by myself. I made sure that I didn't have to go into work today, so you have me all to yourself for a change? Nina said as she spotted a small ice cream parlor. I know something we haven't done in forever. She grabbed Nico's hand and pulled her along. You get us a table and I'll get the ice cream. All right, Auntie. Nico trotted of and round a table near a window so she people watch while she waited. It didn't take Nina long to come over and sat across from her. Anything you want to talk about? Nina asked, watching Nico play with her spoon. When she didn't answer, Nina put a hand over Nico's. I think I have a story that might help you understand what happened. When Nico didn't object, Nina launched into her tale. Many moon long since past, there was an alley cat. Now this cat thought that she was the best of everything and there were very few that could prove her wrong. She was so proud that there wasn't anyone who could best her in a race that she would take on anyone. Nina noticed that Nico was paying close attention now. So one day a young track star came along and beat the alley cat in a race. Now instead of being upset that she had lost like everyone thought she would be, the alley cat started following around the track star. She had fallen in love with him and his scent that reminded her of the wind itself. But there was a problem. The track star did not love her in return because he had someone else already. What happened to the alley cat when she found that out? Nico asked. It must have crushed her to have fallen in love with someone but not to have the feeling returned. Nina nodded. It did. It made her feel like her heart had been shattered into 1,000 pieces. But that wasn't the worst of it. As the time passed, it only made the ache in her heart worse, and by the time the winter season had come around, the alley cat lost her mind to the hate and pain that she went off and did something horrible. She had to pause. It wasn't an easy story for Nina to retell. She got lost in a frenzy and ended up hunting the girlfriend of the track star. It wasn't until the morning when the alley cat woke up in the snow, covered in blood, did she realize what had happened. Did the other girl survive? Nico whispered. It was clear on her face that the story was hitting home. Barely. But it was after that did the alley cat start to fear herself and the very real treat she was. Nina took Nico's hand between hers. She became very afraid of going through her cycles surrounded by people. in case that another frenzy would grip her so thoroughly that there would only be the beast left. She would often sit up and think of every possible terrifying scenario that it almost drove her mad. I don't want you to become like the alley cat. She didn't let people in when it was clear that she needed help. But how do I keep from losing myself? I don't want to be a treat to my friends if there's a chance it could happen again. Nico watched Nina run a finger along the lines on her palm. I heard Aizu, while it wasn't too bad it could have been much worse. That's why you need to let people in. As soon as your cat doesn't see them as a treat to you, it will calm down. Nina said, placing her fingertip on the center of Nico's palm. What happened this time was because you found the scent that calms you and you overdid it taking it in. Do you remember when Nagisa played that horrible prank on you? It was just like that, too much STMLTN and your cat reacted? So I would have been fine if I hadn't taken Katsuki's shirt? Nico tried figuring out just where she had gone wrong and would do her best to avoid doing it in the future. I think the shirt was fine. I think it was you sitting in his lap and being close like that was what triggered it. You can be in the same room as long as you are aware of your limits, at least you'll know for next time. Nina said as Nico's ears picked up a little. I will admit that I didn't like the fact that it was a mixed dorm, but I see now that it is a good thing. You are going to have to deal with this eventually. But you're not going to accept Katsuki just yet, are you? Nico asked with a smile. She knew that Nina wasn't going to roll over as easily as Nick had. Nina let out a small humorless laugh. I am not Nicholas. That boy needs to earn my respect. I am allowing him a chance tonight when I return you back to school. Your friend Izuku offered for me to join you and your classmates for dinner. I do have one question about story. Did the alley cat ever talk to the track star after what happened? Every once in a while, Nina answered, turning to watch the crowds. Last she heard he had become a teacher at some big-name school. Well, maybe if the alley cat goes to visit her niece every so often, she might just get to see the track star. Nico turned her attention back to her ice cream to avoid the glare from her aunt. Just a suggestion, it's not like I would be telling the alley cat that if she really wanted to talk with him that using her niece as an excuse would be a good way to do it. Kit, you're treading on thin ice? Nina warned her, but it didn't carry much weight because of her smile. I will warn you not to meddle in affairs that are not your own. Nico gave Nina a look of mock hurt. I would never. Who do you take me for? I think you are your mother's child and will stick her nose where it doesn't belong. Nina rolled her eyes. How about instead of plotting, you eat up so we can make it in time for dinner? Nico leaned on the counter as she watched Bakugo move around the kitchen. She had left Nina to hold court with the others in the common area. She figured that he hadn't noticed her yet because he was so focused since they got back. I wonder what's going through his head. If I had to take a guess, he's freaking out because of Auntie. Bakugo could feel the catgirl's eyes on him, but hadn't said anything. Why the hell isn't she saying anything? Anyone else would have made some kind of sound by now. He snuck a peek over his shoulder at her. Maybe she blames me too. That has to be it. Nina must have told her it was my fault, and that's why she's not talking. Hey Katsuki, Nico said when she saw him look her way. Do you need a hand with anything? No, he didn't mean for his answer to be as harsh as it sounded. I've got it under control. Why don't you go back to the queen and see if she needs anything? I wanted to say something first. She went over and put head on his back. Don't turn around, all right. I just wanted to say I was sorry for the madness last night. Auntie explained why it happened and I know now how to control it. She tried to blink away the tears that she had been fighting back, but she wasn't able to keep together anymore. CP, now she's crying. What do I do? Bakugo panicked and turned around. Hey, why you crying? It's not like you did any real damage. He pulled her close into his chest. And it was just Deku anyways. He's done worse to himself with his own quirk. That's not the point. I let the animal within me take control and put all of you at risk. She sniffled a little. I thought I said don't turn around. I didn't want you to see me like this. I don't want you to hide anything from me, so if you want to cry, go for it. I won't let the others see you. He held her closer, burying his face in between her ears. I'll always be here for you when you need me. Thank you, she whispered, but right now maybe you should be focusing on dinner. It's about to burn. Nico pointed to the stove as Bakugo's attention snapped back to what he had been doing. God damn it, house cat, why'd you have distract me now? He snapped as Nico stepped away, laughing as he tried to save the food. I'm going to make you pay for this later. Why don't I help out now? It'll go faster with both of us working together. Nico smiled when he went to protest. I thought you wanted to impress Auntie Nina, was all she needed to say to shut him down. What was low? Bakugo grumbled as picked up where he had left off with the vegetables. I think you distracted me on purpose. You can keep thinking that, firecracker, whatever helps you sleep at night. Nico caught a little flash of blush on his cheeks. Yeah, whatever, call me that again and see what happens. He could see she was planning something. You're more trouble than you're worth, house cat. They managed to get dinner served without any problems, while the pair watched Nina waiting for her to pass judgment on Bakugo's cooking. If you two are done being creepy, Nicole, come walk me out. There is something I need to talk to you about. Nina once Nico picked up their dishes. Nina didn't have a chance to move before Aizawa came in, making her falter a step. Shota, good to see you're still breathing, she greeted him, but Nico could tell that it was different from how she would talk to anyone else. Nina. I had heard that another Gata was visiting, I just thought it was Nicholas. Now Nico knew something was off. I take it you're here because of the orders from on high? What's he talking about, Auntie? We've been together almost all day and you hadn't said a thing. Nico could feel the others starting to gather around them. What's going on? Nina looked at the gathering crowd. You couldn't have let me get out the door, could you, Shota? She grabbed Nico's attention. Something has come up and the restrictions on you license have been lifted for now. Nico knew that it meant that she was going to get complicated. When do we leave? Was all she asked, already trying to figure out how much of her gear she was going to need. First thing tomorrow. I was supposed to bring you back with me today, but with everything... Nina dropped off and Nico nodded. I thought you'd be able to focus better if we dealt with this before leaving. I'll get my gear and we can go now. We both know better to keep grandfather waiting. She turned on her heel and rushed to collect her things as quickly as possible. She could feel Bakugo and Izuku following close behind her. I'm sorry, I wish today hadn't been a bust. When I get back we'll do something. Don't worry about it. But what did your aunt mean when she said the restrictions on your license have been lifted? Izuku asked as they caught up with her. Most of us only have a provisional one at best, so what makes yours so different? Because it's a full one. I'll explain when I get back to everyone, I promise. She kept moving, grabbing a duffel bag from the closet and started loading it. Aizu, can you give us a few minutes? Taking the hint, Izuku went and made himself busy elsewhere. You really going to go with her tonight? Bakugo caught her hand. Nico let him pull her to a stop. I don't want to, but like I said, every Gata has to come when called. She maneuvered her hand so they could thread her fingers through his. I'd rather be here with you, but grandfather could pull me from school if he wanted, so I want to keep on his good side. It's just not fair, you having to drop everything and go running when he calls. I like less than you. I would prefer to make up for the lost week, but duty calls. Nico said, putting her free hand on his cheek. I'll keep in as much contact as I can and I'll do everything in my power to come home sooner. I'll be keeping an eye on the news too, I don't want to miss anything awesome. He promised as Nico shook her head. If it's Gata business then the news won't hear about it. And I don't want you to drive yourself crazy worrying about me. Do I have to make Aiza look after you for me while I'm gone? She laughed at the face he made at her suggestion. I noticed that loser anywhere near me, I'll blow him into next year, he snapped. Just come back in one piece, all right? He brought his lips down on hers, pulling her in close by the waist. I don't know how I would be able to handle it if I wasn't there to protect you. I'm going to be just fine. I probably won't see any of the action anyways. She gave him a half smile. I'll be back in no time, you'll see, and then you can take me to meet your parents like you promised. Yeah, well you better be back soon then. I was going to go visit in a couple weeks, so if you want to come with me you better be back before then. He weakly smiled back. I'll be waiting. He let go of her hands so she could finish packing. 2 weeks later. Izuku and Kirishima watched as Bakugo wore a hole into the floor as he paced the length of the common area. Think we should try to get him to relax a little? Kirishima asked as the blonde made another pass. I think it might be safer for everyone if we don't. We haven't heard from Nico in 3 days, so he's a lot on edge. Izuku said as Bakugo came to a stop in front of him. I'll relax when I know she's fine. She promised nothing would happen to her, he said as the sound of a car pulling up caught their attention. Without wasting a second, Bakugo launched himself at the door with the other close behind him. Nick, will you stop fussing? I can get out of the car on. My own. They heard Nico snap. Just take my key and open the door, I can take it from here. You know that boyfriend of yours is going to kill me when he sees you, Nick said, unlocking the door before the guys got to it. It was my job to look after you and now look at you. Bakugo ripped the door open to see a stunned beat-up Nick. Where? She? Was all he growled out as Nick moved out of his way. What the F happened to you? He took stock of the bandages on her face and right hand, the brace on her left arm and the wrap on her right foot. You said they would let you fight? This what happens when the fighting comes to you? Nico took a careful step forward. So I'm a little beat you should see the other guy. She tried to laugh but ended up groaning in pain. You're more than a little beat up, he scooped her up. Deku get the gear and Kiri make sure there's a couch free. They jumped into action, mostly scared of what would happen if he had to repeat himself. Katsuki Bakugo, you will put me down this instant? Nico tried fighting against his grip. I can walk just fine on my own. I don't need to be treated like this. You've been out of communication for 3 days and then you came back like this? It's clear that you can't look after yourself. Bakugo snapped. While he was relieved to see Nico had come back, her condition made him worry that there was more wrong that she showed. 3 days? Nico wiggled around to see Nick. You only said it was 1. She couldn't believe that she had been out for that long. No, what I said was that I had been with you for a day. Nick corrected her. If I had known it had been so long I would have called them so they wouldn't worry. He followed them in and helped get Nico comfortable. Just what the hell happened? Bakugo asked, sitting on the arm of the couch. If you weren't supposed to be in the fight, just how the hell did you two end up like this? Their group was bigger than we thought and a small faction managed to get the drop on us. Nick said as he pulled a chair closer, this idiot managed to pick a fight with someone that could turn themselves into diamond. While she held her own just fine for the most part, the brute got this licks in. Are you out of your mind? No wonder you came back broken. Nico flinched a little at Bakugo's harsh tone. I didn't break anything, just a sprained wrist and ankle and a couple of bruised ribs, she corrected him. I know it wasn't a good idea to go up against him, but I didn't have a choice. I was the only one between him and the kid and I wasn't about to let our employer get hurt waiting for backup. They just looked at her in a stunned silence for a moment. I think you must have been hit in the head too, because you're clearly out of your mind. Just because you didn't end up actually breaking doesn't make it any less stupid. Bakugo did his best to keep from blowing up at her, but Nico was making it really hard. Listen here you hothead, you would have done the exact same thing had you been there. We had a job to do and I made sure it got done. She swung her legs off of the couch. I thought of everyone, you would understand that. But if you're having a hard with it then I might have picked the wrong partner. She got up with all of her usual grace and limped off to the stairs, grabbing her bag from Izuku on the way. Bakugo went to follow her but Nick stopped him with a shake of his head. There's one thing you need to know about Gata women, they need to work their anger out on their own. It would be foolish for you to follow after her now, he warned. Just like my sisters, you're going to need to let her come back to you when she's ready. Nick patted the boy on the shoulder as he got to his feet. You guys have my number if these two start swinging at each other. Izuku closed the door after Nick. Kaken, maybe you overreacted just a little. He watched Bakugo staring down at his hands. I think the pretty kitty broke him. Kirishima said joining Izuku. What do you think we should do about this? Not sure, maybe we shouldn't do anything for now. They both knew better than to press Bakugo just in case his fuse was already at its end. It took Nico 3 days to recover enough to take the brace and wrap off. While she still had a little limp it didn't bother her much. Isaac, can I borrow your notes from all the classes I missed? She asked one morning. You sure you want mine? Why don't you ask Kaken? He's got a better view of the board than I do. Izuku lied, trying to get her to talk to Bakugo. I'll just ask someone else then. She turned away from him. If he doesn't want to come and apologize for being but I can always find someone else to help me catch up. Kaken was just so worried about you and when he saw you all beaten up like that made him scared for you. Izuku could see that she wanted to make up with Bakugo but she was too proud to make the first move. If you just try talking to him, you see that he cares about your safety. My safety isn't something for him to get worked up over. I had a job that needed to get done and I made sure it was done. Nico ended the conversation and went to go get ready for the day. Hey, she heard Bakugo as she came around the corner. Can we talk? Nico had been giving him a cold shoulder unless it was absolutely necessary. When she didn't answer, he continued. I know I was overreacting, but we hadn't heard from you in days and you looked like hell. So you took it upon yourself to treat me like I was able to take care of myself, she snapped. If you had asked, I would have told you that I was mostly healed. She went and leaned on her door with her arms crossed. You should know by now that I don't like being treated like I'm weak, especially in front of anyone. I knew you'd be a stubborn and refuse help when you needed it. Bakugo shot back. I was really worried when I saw you like that because I really care about you. He muttered the last part into his hand. I'm sorry, I think I missed that. Mind repeating that a little louder? Nico had heard him just fine, she just wanted to make him say it again. You heard me, I said I cared for you, he snapped as she closed the gap between them. That's all you had to say. I've missed having you close. She bounced up on her toes to kiss his cheek, but you needed to learn a lesson. You going to overreact in the future? Wrapping an arm around her, every time I can't be with you, so learn to deal with it. He held her close, savoring her weight against him. And we're going to see my folk this weekend, so let's hope you're ready.